At 1 a.m., a woman worth $200 million was left to freeze on a street corner, and the broke single dad who stopped to help her was about to uncover a conspiracy that would destroy everything she'd built. This is a story about power, betrayal, and the moment two strangers from opposite worlds collided in the middle of a snowstorm. Before we dive in, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's get into it. The snow had been falling for 3 hours straight when Logan Pierce's delivery van hit black ice on Morrison Street. Not hard, just enough to feel the tires lose grip for half a second before catching again. Just enough to remind him that he was tired, that his shift should have ended 2 hours ago, and that Emma's babysitter was probably asleep on his couch by now. He flexed his fingers on the steering wheel. The heater rattled, but didn't quite work. Never did. The van smelled like old coffee and cardboard, and the radio had given up somewhere around midnight. Just him and the sound of snow hitting the windshield. One more delivery. Then home. The streets were empty in that particular way they only get at 1 in the morning in a snowstorm. Not peaceful, just abandoned. Streetlights made yellow circles in the white, and everything else disappeared into static. Logan had learned to like the quiet. 6 years of single fatherhood had taught him that silence was underrated. No questions, no needs, just the road and the next turn, and the knowledge that Emma was safe at home, probably dreaming about whatever 6-year-olds dream about. He took the turn onto Fifth Avenue, heading for the warehouse district where his last package waited. Some furniture company that kept irregular hours. He'd drop it, scan it, and be done. That's when his headlights caught her. At first he thought it was a mannequin. Had to be. Because no one in their right mind would be standing at a bus stop in a snowstorm at 1 in the morning wearing what looked like business clothes and heels. But then she moved. Logan's foot hit the brake before his brain finished processing. The van slid a few feet, stopped. He sat there, engine idling, watching this woman through the curtain of snow. She was maybe 30, dressed in a charcoal blazer and skirt that probably cost more than his rent. No coat. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and even from here he could see she was shaking. Her hair, dark, cut sharp at her shoulders, was dusted with snow. She wasn't looking at the street. She was staring at her phone like it had personally betrayed her. Logan knew that look. He'd worn it himself once upon a time. He should keep driving. He knew that. This city had taught him the same lesson over and over. Mind your business. Keep your head down. Get home safe. Nothing good came from getting involved. Emma's face floated up in his mind, asleep on her bed with her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. He put the van in park. The woman didn't look up when he opened his door, didn't seem to register his presence at all until he was standing a few feet away, snow already collecting on his shoulders. "Hey," he said. She turned. For a second, her face was completely blank. Not cold, just absent, like someone had scooped out whatever usually lived behind her eyes. Then she seemed to remember where she was, and something clicked back into place. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice didn't match her appearance. It was steady, professional, the kind of voice that gave presentations to rooms full of people who were paid to listen. "You don't look fine," Logan said. "I appreciate your concern." Each word precise, controlled. "But I'm waiting for my ride." "At a bus stop?" "My phone died." Logan glanced at the bus stop sign. Route 47. Last bus ran at 11:30. He knew because he'd taken that route himself when his van was in the shop last month. "There's no bus coming," he said. "I'm aware." She was still holding her dead phone, clutching it like a talisman. "My driver will return. There was a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding, right. That's why she was dressed for a board meeting and shaking so hard her teeth were probably chattering. Logan recognized the lie. Not because she was bad at lying, she wasn't, but because he'd told enough lies himself to know what they look like from the outside. The way you hold yourself a little too straight, the way you make eye contact a fraction too long. She was terrified. "Look," he said, "I don't know what happened, and it's not my business. But you're going to freeze if you stay out here. There's a 24-hour diner about 6 blocks from here. Let me give you a ride. You can charge your phone, call someone." "I don't accept rides from strangers." Smart policy. He pulled his delivery company ID from his jacket pocket, held it up. "Logan Pierce. I drive for Northside Logistics. You can take a picture of my ID and the license plate if you want. I've got a 6-year-old daughter at home who needs me to not do anything stupid, so you're safe." Something shifted in her expression. Not trust exactly, but a calculation. Whatever equation she was running in her head, the variables had changed. 6 blocks? She asked. Give or take. She looked down at her heels, designer probably. Definitely not made for snow. Then she looked back at the empty street, at the bus stop that offered no shelter, at the phone that had given up on her. "Fine," she said. The van's passenger seat hadn't been cleaned in probably 3 weeks. Logan watched her take in the empty coffee cups, the scattered receipts, the child's drawing taped to the dashboard, Emma's rendition of a unicorn that looked more like a horse having a bad day. She sat down without comment, pulled the seatbelt across her lap. Her hands were shaking so badly it took her 2 tries to click it into place. Logan got back in, cranked the heat up as high as it would go. The engine made a sound like a dying animal, but warm air started trickling out. They didn't talk for the first 2 blocks. Logan kept his eyes on the road, giving her space to fall apart if she needed to. Some people needed that, the permission to stop performing, to just sit in someone else's silence for a minute. She didn't fall apart. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't mention it. I mean it." She was looking at her reflection in the passenger window. "You didn't have to stop." "Yeah, I did." She turned to look at him then. Really look at him. Logan kept his eyes forward, but he could feel the weight of her attention. "Why?" she asked. "Because someone would have done it for my daughter." The truth, but not the whole truth. The whole truth was more complicated. The whole truth involved a different life, different choices, a version of himself that used to walk past people who needed help. Because he was too busy, too important, too focused on the next meeting or the next project. That version of himself didn't exist anymore. Emma had burned it down the day she was born, and the ashes had reformed into someone who stopped at bus stops and snowstorms. "Your daughter," the woman said, "the one who draws unicorns." Logan glanced at the dashboard drawing, felt himself smile. "That's Emma. She's 6. Takes after her dad. Can't draw to save her life." "I think it's a good unicorn." "You're being kind. That's clearly a horse with a party hat." The woman's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. The first crack in the armor. "I'm Victoria," she said. Logan almost swerved, because now that he was looking at her, really looking, he recognized her. Not from meeting her, but from the news, from the occasional newspaper he'd glance at during lunch breaks. Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, some kind of manufacturing company that had tripled in value over the last 5 years. There'd been an article about her in the business section last month, something about youngest female CEO in the city's history. And he just picked her up at a bus stop wearing a delivery van uniform and offering her a ride to a diner. "Logan," he said, because what else could he say? "But you probably saw that on the ID." "I wasn't actually looking at your ID," Victoria admitted. "I was too cold to focus." "Then you're either very trusting or very desperate." "The latter." She pulled her blazer tighter around herself, though it clearly wasn't helping. "You don't seem surprised that I got in the van." "People do strange things when they're out of options." "Is that experience talking?" Logan thought about the studio apartment he'd moved into after Sarah died. The months when Emma was 3 and he had $47 in his bank account and no idea how he was going to make rent. The job interviews where he showed up in a borrowed suit and tried to explain why there was a 2-year gap in his resume without saying the words, "My wife died and I had to figure out how to keep a toddler alive." "Yeah," he said. "Experience." The diner appeared on their right. Mel's 24-hour. A grease-stained miracle of survival that had outlasted 3 economic recessions and 2 different owners. Logan pulled into the parking lot, which had exactly 2 other cars in it. Victoria was staring at the neon sign like it might bite her. "It's not fancy," Logan said, "but the coffee's decent and they won't ask questions." "Perfect," Victoria said, and he couldn't tell if she was being sarcastic. For a sip. The interior of Mel's looked exactly how it smelled, like coffee that had been sitting too long and bacon grease that had achieved consciousness. The floor was cracked linoleum, the booths were held together with duct tape and prayers, and the waitress behind the counter looked like she'd been there since the Carter administration. "Sit anywhere," she called out, not looking up from her crossword puzzle. Logan led Victoria to a booth in the back, away from the windows. Old habit from his previous life. Always sit where you can see the exits, where your back isn't exposed. Some instincts didn't fade. Victoria slid into the booth, and Logan watched her take in the surroundings with the same careful assessment she'd given his van, cataloging, measuring, trying to make sense of how she'd ended up here. "You want coffee?" Logan asked. "Please?" He caught the waitress's eye, held up 2 fingers. She nodded, shuffled over with a pot and 2 mugs that had seen better days. Poured without speaking, disappeared back to her crossword. Victoria wrapped her hands around the mug like it was the last source of heat in the universe. Took a sip, winced. "Told you it wasn't fancy," Logan said. "It's perfect," Victoria said, and this time she wasn't being sarcastic. They sat in silence for a minute. Victoria drinking her terrible coffee, Logan watching her carefully. She'd stopped shaking, which was good, but the fear hadn't left her eyes. It had just transformed into something else, something harder. "So," Logan said carefully, "you want to tell me what actually happened?" "Why would you want to know?" "Because people don't end up stranded at bus stops in snowstorms by accident, and you're smart enough to know that." Victoria's fingers tightened on her mug. "It's complicated." "I've got time." She studied him for a long moment. Logan could see her running calculations again, weighing risks, deciding how much truth to offer a stranger in a delivery van who'd shown her basic human decency. "I had a driver," she said finally. "Marcus. He's been with me for 4 years, never late, never unreliable. Tonight I had a dinner meeting that ran long. Marcus picked me up at 11:30, started driving me home." She paused, took another sip of coffee. "Except he didn't drive me home. He took a different route. When I asked about it, he said there was construction. Then his phone rang. He answered it, which he never does when he's driving. And then..." She stopped. "Then what?" "Then he pulled over, told me to get out." Logan felt something cold settle in his chest. "He just told you to get out?" "Not quite that simple. He said there was an emergency with his daughter, that he had to go, that he was sorry, but I needed to get out of the car, now." "Did you believe him?" Victoria's laugh was sharp, bitter. "No, because Marcus doesn't have a daughter. He has 2 sons. I know because I went to their high school graduations." The cold in Logan's chest spread. "So he was lying. Obviously. And your phone?" "Died 20 minutes before he picked me up. I'd been in meetings all day, forgot to charge it. By the time I realized the battery was at 2%, I plugged it in while we were driving, but..." She gestured helplessly. "Not enough time." Logan's engineering brain was already working, pulling patterns from what she was telling him. The dead phone. The driver who suddenly developed an emergency. The route change. "Where exactly did he drop you off?" he asked. "Corner of 5th and Morrison." "That's not on the way to anywhere residential." "I know." "It's not even on a major road that would have taxis." "I know." "And there's no 24-hour businesses within walking distance. No place to go for help." Victoria set her mug down, looked at him directly. "You're not just a delivery driver, are you?" The question shouldn't have surprised him, but it did. "What makes you say that?" "The way you ask questions, the way you noticed all of those things." She tilted her head slightly. "What did you do before this?" Logan hesitated. He didn't talk about his old life, not with anyone. It was easier to let people assume he'd always been exactly what he appeared to be, a guy who drove a van and delivered packages and went home to his daughter. But Victoria had trusted him enough to get in his van, to tell him the truth about what happened. Fair was fair. "I was a systems engineer," he said, "specialized in infrastructure security. Worked for a consulting firm that handled corporate networks, facility access systems, that kind of thing. And now you deliver packages." "Yeah. Why?" The question was gentle, but it still felt like a punch. Logan looked down at his coffee, at the chipped rim of the mug, at anything except Victoria's 2 perceptive eyes. "My wife died," he said quietly. "Car accident 6 years ago. Emma was 3 months old. I took time off to figure out how to be a single parent. By the time I was ready to go back to work, My security clearances had lapsed, my contacts had moved on, and I had a toddler who needed me home at predictable hours. Delivery driving pays the bills and lets me be there for her. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it easier. No, it didn't. But Logan had learned to carry it differently over the years. The grief wasn't gone. It never would be. But it had reshaped itself into something he could live with. Something that looked like acceptance from the outside, even if it still felt like loss on the inside. Anyway, he said, steering the conversation back, the point is, I used to think about security vulnerabilities for a living. And what happened to you tonight? That wasn't random. That was planned. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. She'd already known. Tell me, she said. Logan pulled a napkin from the dispenser, grabbed a pen from his jacket, started sketching a timeline. Your phone dies right before your driver picks you up. That's strike one. Could be coincidence, but it's convenient timing. Strike two, he changes the route. Strike three, he gets a call that gives him an excuse to remove you from the car in a location where you have no resources, no way to contact anyone, and no easy way to get home. He tapped the pen on the napkin. But here's what bothers me most. He didn't just drop you anywhere. He dropped you at a specific location. A bus stop. Why? I don't know. I think you do, or at least you're starting to figure it out. Victoria was staring at the napkin, at Logan's crude timeline, and her face had gone very still. I have a board meeting tomorrow morning, she said quietly. 8:45 a.m. If I'm not there, I miss a critical vote. What vote? There's a clause in our operating agreement. If I miss 2 consecutive quarterly board meetings without documented cause, the board can call a vote to replace me as CEO. I missed the last one because I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I had doctor's notes, documentation, everything. But the board, there are factions. People who think I'm too young, too aggressive with expansion, too willing to take risks. Logan's pen had stopped moving. If you miss tomorrow, then they can vote me out. And they will. I know they will. I've seen the numbers. 4 board members are loyal to me. 5 are not. The tiebreaker is our legal counsel, and he's been on the fence for months. So if you're not there, I lose my company. Victoria's voice was flat. Matter of fact. The voice of someone who'd already accepted the worst possible outcome. Everything I've built for the last 8 years. Gone. Logan looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the CEO in the expensive suit. Not the woman from the news articles. Just a person who was watching her entire life collapse in real time and trying desperately not to show it. What time is it now? He asked. Victoria glanced at the clock on the diner wall. 1:47 a.m. So you have about 7 hours. To do what? I don't have my phone. I don't have access to my apartment. My keys were in my bag, which Marcus still has. I don't have... She stopped, closed her eyes. I don't have anything. The despair in her voice was raw, unfiltered. This was what happened when someone who was used to having control suddenly had none. When all the safety nets disappeared at once. Logan made a decision. You have me, he said. Victoria's eyes opened. What? I said you have me. I've got a phone, an apartment, a computer. 7 hours is enough time to figure out what's happening and how to fix it. You don't even know me. Don't have to. I know what it looks like when someone's being set up, and I know that if I were in your position, I'd want someone to help. This isn't your problem. You made it my problem when you got in my van. Logan pushed the napkin across the table. Besides, it's been a while since I did any real problem solving. I miss it. Victoria stared at him. You're serious. Completely. You could get in trouble. If this is what I think it is, if someone planned this, they won't be happy about you interfering. Let me worry about that. For the first time since he'd found her at the bus stop, Victoria smiled. A real smile. Small, but genuine. You're either very brave or very stupid, she said. Both, probably. Emma says I make bad decisions when I'm trying to help people. Smart kid. Terrifying kid. Logan stood up, dropped a 10 on the table for the coffee. Come on. We've got work to do. Setting. Logan's apartment was exactly what Victoria expected. Small, clean, lived in. One bedroom for Emma, a pull-out couch in the living room where Logan clearly slept. Drawings covered the refrigerator, held up with magnets shaped like fruits and vegetables. A pile of laundry sat folded on the kitchen table. Children's books were stacked next to the TV. It looked like a home, a real one. The babysitter, a college student named Maya who lived 2 floors down, looked up from her phone when they walked in. Her eyes widened when she saw Victoria. "Everything okay?" Maya asked carefully. "Fine," Logan said. "Just helping someone out. How was Emma?" "Perfect as always. Went down at 8:30. Hasn't made a sound." Maya grabbed her jacket, glanced at Victoria one more time. "You sure everything's okay?" "Positive. Thanks for staying late." After Maya left, Logan disappeared into Emma's room for a minute. Victoria heard him moving quietly, probably checking on his daughter. When he came back, his expression had softened. "She's asleep," he said unnecessarily. "We'll need to be quiet." "Of course." Logan gestured to the small kitchen table, pulled out his laptop. It was old, probably 7 or 8 years out of date, but it booted up quickly enough. "Okay," he said, opening a web browser. "Talk me through your board. Who's loyal, who's not, who's on the fence?" For the next hour, Victoria laid it out. The board dynamics, the power plays, the subtle shifts in alliance that had been happening over the past year. Logan listened, took notes, asked questions that were sharper than she expected. He was good at this. Really good. The way he parsed information, found connections, built timelines. This wasn't just someone who used to work in security. This was someone who'd been exceptional at it. "Your CFO," Logan said, tapping a name on his screen. "Marcus Brennan. Tell me about him." "He's been with the company for 3 years. Came highly recommended. Good with numbers, conservative with budgets, sometimes clashes with me about expansion plans, but nothing unusual." "Married?" "Divorced. No kids." "Debt?" Victoria paused. "I don't know. Why would that matter?" "Because people don't orchestrate elaborate conspiracies for free. If someone set this up, they're getting paid. And if they're getting paid, there's probably a reason they need money." Logan's fingers flew over the keyboard. Victoria watched him navigate through public records, business filings, things she didn't even know were accessible online. "Here," he said, turning the laptop toward her. "Your CFO filed for bankruptcy 4 years ago. Cleared it 3 years ago, right before he started working for you. That's not unusual. Plenty of people recover from bankruptcy." "True. But look at this." He pulled up another screen. "He bought a house last year, paid cash. $1.2 million. Victoria felt something cold crawl up her spine. "On a CFO salary?" "Not legally, no." They stared at each other. "Keep digging," Victoria said. By 4 a.m. they had a pattern. It wasn't complete, not yet, but it was there. Marcus Brennan, the CFO, had made a series of unusual transactions over the past 6 months. Nothing overtly illegal, nothing that would raise immediate red flags, but strange enough to notice if you were looking. A consulting fee paid to a company that didn't seem to exist. Travel expenses that didn't match any business trips Victoria remembered approving. Small amounts spread out, carefully hidden in the normal noise of corporate accounting. "He's been preparing for something," Logan said, rubbing his eyes. "Building a war chest, maybe, or paying someone else to build it for him." "But why?" Victoria's voice was hoarse from talking. "What does he gain from removing me?" "Who takes over if you're gone?" "The board would appoint an interim CEO, probably someone internal. Maybe—" She stopped. "Maybe him." "There it is." Victoria stood up, paced the small kitchen. Her mind was racing, putting pieces together. If he becomes CEO, he controls the company. He controls the budgets, the accounts, everything. He could hide whatever he's been doing, or do more of it. And no one would question him, Logan added, because he'd be the boss. "We need proof, real proof, not just suspicious transactions and convenient timing." Logan glanced at the clock. "It's 4:15. You need to be at that meeting in 4.5 hours. We're not going to find proof in time." "Then what do we do?" Logan closed the laptop, looked at her directly. "We make sure you get to that meeting. Everything else, we deal with after." "I don't even know where the building is from here." I don't have keys to get in. Security won't let me through without my badge, which was in my bag. Do you have anyone in the company you trust completely? Someone who would help you without asking questions? Victoria thought, Amanda, my legal counsel. She's the tiebreaker vote, but she's been with me since the beginning, before I was CEO. If anyone would help, it's her. Can you reach her? I have her personal number memorized. Old habit. Logan handed her his phone. Call her. Amanda Chen answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. This better be life or death, she mumbled. It's Victoria. Silence. Then, much more alert. Victoria, what number is this? Are you okay? I'm fine, but I need your help, and I need you not to ask questions yet. What happened? I'll explain everything, but right now I need you to do something for me. Can you meet me at the office early, before anyone else gets there? How early? 7 a.m. Another pause. Victoria could practically hear Amanda's lawyer brain working, assessing the situation. This is about the board meeting, Amanda said. Yes. Someone tried to make sure you wouldn't be there. Yes. Shit. The sound of Amanda getting out of bed, moving around. Okay, I'll be there at 7 o'clock. Where are you now? Victoria glanced at Logan. With someone who's helping me. We'll be there at 7 o'clock. Do I need to bring anything? Just yourself. And Amanda? Don't tell anyone I called. Not yet. Understood. See you at 7. The call ended. Victoria handed the phone back to Logan, realized her hands were shaking again. Not from cold this time. From adrenaline, from fear, from the surreal reality that she was planning to sneak into her own building at dawn to attend a meeting where half the board wanted to destroy her. You should try to sleep, Logan said gently. Even just an hour. You need to be sharp. I can't sleep. Then at least rest. Couch is all yours. Victoria looked at the worn couch, at the blanket folded neatly on one end, at the pillow that had clearly been slept on too many times to count. This was Logan's bed, the place he slept every night so Emma could have her own room. I'll take the floor, she said. Don't be ridiculous. I've displaced you enough for one night. Logan smiled. You haven't displaced me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He grabbed the blanket and pillow, handed them to her. Get some rest. I'll wake you at 6:30. He disappeared into Emma's room, closing the door quietly behind him. Victoria stood alone in the small living room, clutching a stranger's blanket, trying to process the last 5 hours. This morning, she'd woken up as one of the most powerful people in the city. Tonight, she'd been abandoned on a street corner by someone she trusted. And now she was in a delivery driver's apartment, planning a counterattack against her own CFO with a man she'd met 4 hours ago. Her life had become unrecognizable. She lay down on the couch, pulled the blanket up. It smelled like laundry detergent and something else. Something that reminded her of safety, of normalcy, of the kind of life she'd sacrificed a long time ago in pursuit of power. Through the thin wall, she could hear Logan moving quietly in Emma's room. The soft murmur of his voice as he probably told his sleeping daughter that everything was okay, that Daddy was home. Victoria closed her eyes. For the first time all night, she felt like maybe everything would be okay. She didn't actually sleep, just lay there in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of someone else's home, the refrigerator humming, the heat kicking on, footsteps from the apartment above, the distant sound of early morning traffic starting to build. At 6:15, before Logan's alarm could go off, she heard his door open, footsteps in the hallway. Then the smell of coffee. Victoria sat up, folded the blanket. Logan was in the kitchen, still wearing the same clothes from last night, hair sticking up in directions that defied physics. You didn't sleep either, she said. Emma's a kicker, caught me in the ribs twice. He poured coffee into 2 mugs, handed her one. But mostly I was thinking. About? About what happens after you make it to the meeting, because stopping them today doesn't solve the bigger problem. Victoria wrapped her hands around the mug. I know. You're going to need evidence. Real evidence. The kind that holds up in court, if it comes to that. I don't even know where to start looking. Logan took a sip of his coffee, seemed to be weighing something. I do. What do you mean? I mean, I know how corporate security systems work. I know where companies keep their sensitive data, how to access it, what to look for. He met her eyes. I could help you find what you need. That's illegal. Only if we get caught. Ooh, Logan, I'm not saying we break into anything. I'm saying that if you give me authorized access to your company's systems, I can find things that your CFO thought he hid. I can trace the money, find the connections, build a case that actually sticks. Victoria stared at him. Why would you do that? This isn't your fight. Isn't it? Logan set his mug down. I spent 6 years watching people get away with things because no one cared enough to stop them. I'm tired of it. And besides, he glanced toward Emma's room. I want her to grow up in a world where people help each other, where doing the right thing matters. Can't teach her that if I don't live it. There was something in his voice, something that told Victoria this wasn't really about her at all. This was about Logan trying to be the person he wanted his daughter to believe he was. Okay, she said quietly. After the meeting, if I'm still CEO, I'll give you access to everything. And if you're not, then none of this matters anyway. They drank their coffee in silence. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Dawn coming. The city waking up. At 6:30, Emma wandered out of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. She stopped when she saw Victoria, tilted her head like a curious bird. Who are you? She asked. I'm Victoria, Victoria said. I'm a friend of your dad's. Emma looked at Logan for confirmation. He nodded. Did you have a sleepover? Emma asked. Something like that. Emma seemed to accept this, climbed onto Logan's lap. Can we have pancakes? Not today, sweetheart. Daddy has to help Victoria with something. Maya's going to come get you for school, okay? Okay. Emma looked at Victoria again. You're pretty. Victoria felt something unexpected, a crack in the armor she'd been holding up all night. Thank you. You're pretty too. I know. Emma said it with such complete confidence that Logan laughed. Humble, this one, he said, kissing the top of her head. By 6:45, Maya had arrived to take Emma to school. By 6:50, Logan and Victoria were in his van, heading toward the financial district where Hale Industries had its headquarters. The snow had stopped, but the streets were still covered. The city looked clean, pristine, like someone had reset everything overnight. Victoria watched the buildings slide past, tried to prepare herself for what was coming. You ready? Logan asked. No. Good. People who think they're ready are usually the ones who screw up. They pulled into the parking garage at 6:58. Amanda was waiting by the employee entrance, wearing a coat over what looked like pajamas, holding 2 coffee cups. You look like hell, she said to Victoria. You should see the other guy. Amanda's eyes slid to Logan, assessing. Who's this? Logan Pierce, he's helping. Helping how? Long story, I'll explain inside. Amanda handed them the coffees, pulled out her security badge. Board meeting starts in less than 2 hours. You want to tell me what's happening? Someone tried to make sure I wouldn't be here, Victoria said. Marcus Brennan, probably. Maybe others. I don't have proof yet, but I will. Amanda's jaw tightened. That son of a... Later. Right now, I need to get upstairs, clean up, and walk into that boardroom like nothing happened. Your office? Yes. They moved through the building quietly. It was early enough that security was light. Most employees hadn't arrived yet. The executive floor was empty, silent except for the hum of computers and HVAC systems. Victoria's office was exactly as she'd left it yesterday morning. Desk organized, files stacked, the view of the city stretching out through floor-to-ceiling windows. Her second home. Maybe her real home. I'll stand guard, Amanda said, positioning herself by the door. You've got 90 minutes. Victoria grabbed clothes from the closet she kept for emergencies. A navy suit, fresh blouse, heels that were actually designed for walking, disappeared into her private bathroom to change. When she emerged, she looked like herself again. Hair fixed, makeup minimal but professional, posture straight. The CEO was back. Logan was standing by her desk, looking at a framed photo. Victoria, maybe 5 years younger, shaking hands with the mayor at some charity event. Different world, he said quietly. Very different. You belong in it. Victoria wasn't sure if that was true anymore, but she knew she wasn't ready to leave it. Not like this. Not because someone decided she was inconvenient. At 8:30, board members started arriving. Victoria watched them through her office window, recognized the factions immediately. The four who supported her clustered together, talking in low voices. The five who didn't spread out, confident, already victorious in their minds. Marcus Brennan arrived at 8:35, looking fresh, rested, completely at ease. He was smiling. Victoria felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. "It's time," Amanda said. Logan was still standing by the window. Victoria walked over to him, held out her hand. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." He shook her hand, his grip warm and steady. "Go show them who's in charge." Victoria walked into the boardroom at 8:44 a.m. The reaction was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone dropped a pen. Marcus Brennan's face went completely white. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table, crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap, looked at each board member in turn. "Good morning," she said pleasantly. "Shall we begin?" The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Every second felt like walking through glass. The five board members who wanted her gone kept exchanging glances, clearly thrown by her presence, but trying to regroup. Marcus didn't speak, just sat there staring at her like she'd risen from the dead, which, Victoria supposed, she had. The vote they'd been planning, the motion to remove her, never materialized. Without her absence, there was no grounds for it. The quarterly business review proceeded normally. Numbers were discussed, strategies were debated. Victoria answered every question with calm precision. At 10:15, the meeting adjourned. Victoria didn't move, just sat there watching board members file out. Marcus tried to leave quickly, but she caught his eye. "Marcus," she said, "a word?" He froze, turned slowly. "Of course." They were alone in the boardroom now, except for Amanda, who had positioned herself by the door like a particularly well-dressed security guard. "You seem surprised to see me," Victoria said. No, of course not. I'm glad you made it." "Are you? Because I got the impression you were expecting something else." Marcus's composure was cracking. "I don't know what you're talking about. My driver, Marcus, the one who abandoned me on a street corner last night. Any idea why he might have done that?" "I have no idea what—" "Don't!" Victoria's voice cut like a blade. "Don't insult both of us by lying. I know what you did. I don't have all the proof yet, but I will. And when I do, you're going to wish you'd been smarter about this." Marcus's face had gone from white to red. "You can't prove anything." "Watch me." She stood, walked past him toward the door, paused. "You're fired," she said without turning around. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to clear your office." "You can't do that. I'm the CEO. I can do whatever I want. Amanda, make sure he leaves the building." She walked out, head high, spine straight, not letting herself shake until she was back in her office with the door closed. Then she collapsed into her chair and let herself feel it. The fear, the anger, the bone-deep exhaustion of the last 12 hours. Her phone, charged now, retrieved from security, buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You did good." LP Victoria smiled despite everything. Typed back. "Couldn't have done it without you. Emma wants to know if you like pizza. I love pizza." "Good. Come for dinner tonight, 6 o'clock. We'll figure out the next steps." Victoria looked out her window at the city below. Her city. Her company. Her life. It wasn't over. Marcus would fight back. The investigation would be brutal. The board would fracture. Everything was about to get much, much harder. But right now, in this moment, she'd won. And tonight she'd have pizza with a 6-year-old and her father, and start planning how to make sure she won the war, not just the battle. The pizza arrived at 6:17 p.m., which meant Logan had ordered it at exactly the right time to account for Friday evening traffic, and the fact that Mario's was always running 15 minutes behind schedule. Victoria noticed this kind of thing now. The small calculations people made to keep their lives running smoothly. The invisible math of survival. Emma answered the door before Logan could get there, standing on her tiptoes to peer through the peephole first. Smart kid. Logan had taught her well. "It's the pizza man," Emma announced, then looked back at Victoria, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor helping sort a truly impressive collection of crayons by color. "Do you have money?" "I've got it, sweetheart," Logan called from the kitchen, where he'd been attempting to make the apartment look slightly less like a disaster zone. He'd given up after realizing that every available surface was covered in either Emma's artwork or his work schedules or both. Victoria watched him pay the delivery guy, tip generously despite clearly calculating whether he could afford it. The transaction took maybe 30 seconds, but she saw the whole equation play out on his face. Rent due in 2 weeks. Emma's school field trip next month. The van making a weird noise that probably meant something expensive. He caught her watching, gave a half shrug that said, "Yeah, this is my life," and brought the pizza boxes to the coffee table. "Pepperoni for the lady," he said, opening the first box in front of Emma, who immediately grabbed a slice with both hands. And something called the Supreme Deluxe for the adults, which I'm pretty sure is just every topping they had left over. "It's perfect," Victoria said, meaning it. They ate in relative silence for the first few minutes. Emma provided occasional commentary on her day, something about a boy named Tyler who'd eaten paste, a story about recess that seemed to involve a disputed tetherball championship, concerns about whether unicorns could swim or just walked on water. "Walked on water, definitely," Logan said with complete seriousness. "It's the horn. Acts like a boat rudder." "That doesn't make sense," Emma said. "Unicorns don't make sense, Em. That's the whole point." Victoria felt something strange happening in her chest. Something that felt dangerously close to longing. This was what normal looked like. Cheap pizza and ridiculous conversations, and a kid who believed her dad knew everything about imaginary creatures. She'd forgotten that normal existed. After Emma went to bed, a process that involved 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, and one lengthy negotiation about whether stuffed animals had feelings, Logan pulled out his laptop again and set it on the kitchen table. "Okay," he said. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Victoria had brought a flash drive with her company credentials, authorization codes, everything Logan would need to access the systems legally. Well, mostly legally. There were probably some HR policies being bent, but given the circumstances, she wasn't particularly concerned about following protocol. Logan plugged in the drive, his fingers already moving across the keyboard with the kind of fluid confidence that came from muscle memory. Victoria watched code scroll across the screen, meaningless to her, but clearly making perfect sense to him. "Your security is decent," he said after a few minutes. "Not great, but decent. 2-factor authentication, encrypted databases, regular password rotations. Someone actually gave a damn when they set this up." "That was me," Victoria said, 3 years ago. "I hired an outside firm after we had a data breach." "Good call. Makes my job easier if the infrastructure isn't held together with duct tape and wishful thinking." He paused, frowned at something on the screen. "Although someone's been making modifications to the access logs." "What kind of modifications?" "The kind where certain entries disappear. See this?" He turned the laptop toward her, pointed at a series of timestamps. "These should be sequential. User logs in, performs actions, logs out, except there's gaps. Little pockets where nothing was recorded even though the system was clearly active." Victoria leaned closer. "Can you tell what was happening during those gaps?" "Not from the logs. But I can make an educated guess." Well, Logan pulled up a different screen, started cross-referencing timestamps with financial transaction records. Every time there's a gap, there's also a corresponding wire transfer, small amounts, under $10,000, which keeps them under the federal reporting threshold. But they add up. "How much are we talking?" Logan did some quick math. "Over the last 6 months? About $400,000. Victoria felt her stomach drop. 400,000. Stolen from my company. Probably not stolen. My guess is it was moved through legitimate channels, consulting fees, vendor payments, that kind of thing. But the money ended up somewhere it shouldn't have." "Can you trace where it went?" "I can try." Logan's fingers flew across the keyboard again, pulling up bank routing numbers, shell company registrations, business filings. The screen filled with data that looked like alphabet soup to Victoria, but clearly told Logan a story. After 20 minutes, he sat back. "Well?" Victoria asked. "You're not going to like this." "I already don't like any of this. Just tell me." Logan turned the laptop toward her again, showing a web of connections that looked like something out of a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Companies linked to other companies, all ultimately tracing back to a single name, Marcus Brennan. But not just him. 2 of her board members, the ones who'd been most vocal about questioning her leadership, most aggressive about pushing for her removal. "They've been working together," Victoria said quietly. "This wasn't just Marcus going rogue. This was coordinated." "Looks like it, and it goes back further than 6 months. I found transactions from almost 2 years ago. Smaller amounts, harder to spot, but the pattern's there." Logan closed the laptop. "They've been planning this for a long time." Victoria stood up, walked to the window. The city stretched out below, millions of lights, millions of people living their lives completely unaware that hers was imploding. "I don't understand," she said. "Why go through all this? If they wanted me gone, there are easier ways, legal ways. They could have just built a case against my performance, presented it to the board." "Because you're good at your job," Logan said. "Because by every measurable standard, you've been successful. Revenue's up, the company's growing, employees are happy. There's no legitimate reason to remove you, so they had to manufacture one. By stealing money and making it look like I was incompetent? By creating chaos, making you miss meetings, making the board question your reliability, undermining confidence. Then, once you're gone, they slide their own person into the CEO position, probably Marcus, and suddenly all the financial irregularities disappear because the person investigating is the same person who committed them." Victoria pressed her forehead against the cool glass. "I trusted him. I trusted all of them." "I know. Marcus came to me 3 years ago. His resume was perfect. His references checked out. He seemed genuinely excited about the company's mission." Her laugh was bitter. "I thought we were building something together." Logan didn't say anything, just let her process, let her feel it. He understood that sometimes the betrayal hurt worse than the crime. After a long moment, Victoria turned back to face him. "What do I do with this information? I can't just accuse them without proof that'll hold up in court. Right now, all we have is suspicious transactions and convenient timing." "We need more," Logan agreed. "We need something that directly connects them to the conspiracy. Emails, recorded conversations, something that proves intent." "Those would be on the company server, but if they were smart enough to hide the money trail, they were probably smart enough not to leave evidence sitting around in their inboxes." People are rarely as smart as they think they are, and even smart people make mistakes when they feel safe. Logan opened the laptop again. "Give me access to the email system. That's definitely not legal without a warrant." "Do you want to be right, or do you want to win?" Victoria stared at him. "If we get caught, we won't get caught. And even if we do, you're the CEO. You have broad authority to investigate potential fraud within your own company. We might bend some privacy policies, but we're not breaking any laws." "That's a thin line. It's the only line we've got." Victoria thought about Marcus's face this morning when she'd walked into that boardroom. The shock, the fear, the desperate calculation of someone whose plan had just fallen apart. He wasn't going to go quietly. He'd fight back, probably claim wrongful termination, maybe even file a lawsuit, unless she had evidence that proved what he'd done. "Okay," she said. "Do it." Logan pulled up the email server, started running searches. Keywords, date ranges, sender-recipient combinations. The laptop hummed, processing thousands of messages, looking for patterns that would prove conspiracy. Victoria sat down across from him, watched him work. His focus was complete, almost meditative. This was who he'd been before, she realized. Before loss had reshaped him into someone simpler, someone whose world began and ended with a 6-year-old's needs. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. Logan didn't look up from the screen. "Sure." "Do you miss it? Your old life?" His fingers paused on the keyboard. "Sometimes. Late at night, when Emma's asleep and the apartment's quiet. I miss the challenge of it. The feeling of solving something complex, of being good at something that mattered. You're good at being a father. That's different. That's not optional. That's just what you do when someone needs you completely." He looked up at her then. "But yeah, sometimes I miss feeling like I was part of something bigger than just surviving day to day." "Is that why you're helping me? Because you miss it?" Logan considered this. "Partly, but also because I know what it's like to have everything taken from you, and I know what it's like when no one helps." He went back to the laptop. "Sarah and I, we had life insurance, savings, a plan. Then she died, and I found out the life insurance policy had lapsed because of a missed payment during a billing address change. The savings disappeared into funeral costs and the mortgage on a house I couldn't afford to keep. The plan evaporated. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I learned something from it. The system doesn't care about you. The people who are supposed to help you don't always show up. So when you have the chance to be the person who shows up, you take it. The laptop beeped. Logan's attention snapped back to the screen, his eyes scanning whatever the search had found. Got something, he said. Victoria leaned forward. What? Email chain between Marcus and Richard Chen. That's one of your board members, right? Yes, one of the 5 who want me gone. They weren't being careful. Look at this. He turned the laptop so she could see. The email was from 6 months ago, subject line innocuous, Q3 projections review. But the content was anything but innocent. Marcus, the timeline needs to move up. She's talking about bringing in an outside auditor for the annual review. Richard, can't rush this. One mistake and the whole thing collapses. Marcus, we don't have time to be cautious. If an auditor finds what we've already moved, it's over anyway. Richard, then we accelerate. Board meeting is in November. We make sure she doesn't attend. Medical emergency, family crisis, doesn't matter. She misses one more meeting, we have our window. Marcus, and if she shows up anyway? Richard, she won't, trust me. Victoria read it twice, her hands shaking. This is it. This is proof of conspiracy. It's a start, Logan said, but we need more. This shows they plan to make you miss the meeting, but it doesn't explicitly say how. A good lawyer could argue this is just aggressive business strategy, not criminal conspiracy. Keep searching. Logan did. For the next 2 hours, they went through emails, text messages recovered from company phones, calendar entries that had been marked private but weren't actually deleted. The picture that emerged was damning. A months-long plot involving not just Marcus and Richard, but 3 other board members, all working together to systematically undermine Victoria's authority. They'd planted stories with business journalists questioning her leadership. They'd delayed approvals on key projects she championed, then blamed her for the delays. They'd manipulated quarterly reports to make her decisions look riskier than they were. And yes, they'd arranged for her driver to abandon her. That particular detail came from a text message on Marcus's phone, sent to a number registered to a burner phone that had pinged off a cell tower near Victoria's office the night of the incident. Marcus to unknown number. Tonight. Make it look natural. Car trouble. Personal emergency. Anything. Just make sure she doesn't get home. Unknown number. It'll cost extra. Marcus. I don't care. Just do it. There's your proof, Logan said. You paid someone to strand you. That's conspiracy. Possibly kidnapping, depending on how a prosecutor wants to charge it. Add in the financial fraud, the board manipulation, you've got enough to bury him. Victoria stared at the messages, feeling something cold and hard settling in her chest. Not anger. Anger was too hot, too imprecise. This was something else. Something that felt like clarity. I need to make copies of everything, she said. Multiple copies. Different locations. If this is our only evidence and something happens to it, already done. Logan held up 3 flash drives. Cloud backup 2, in an account they can't trace. And I sent encrypted copies to an email address that doesn't exist yet, but will if you follow these instructions. He handed her a piece of paper with a complex series of steps. Victoria looked at him. You've done this before. Let's just say I understand how important it is to have insurance. A sound from Emma's room made them both freeze. They waited, listening. Just the kid shifting in her sleep, mumbling something about unicorns. Logan relaxed. We should call it a night. You need sleep, and I need to make sure Em gets to school on time tomorrow. What do I do with this information? I can't just take it to the board. Half of them are implicated. No, but you can take it to the authorities. Federal investigators love corporate fraud cases. Makes them look good, and the evidence basically prosecutes itself. That could take months, years even. And in the meantime, Marcus and his friends will lawyer up, tie everything in knots. So you do both, Logan said. You go to the feds, get the official investigation started. But you also go to the media. Leak enough to make this public. Make it impossible for them to operate quietly. They want to destroy your reputation, destroy theirs first. Victoria felt something shift inside her. This was war. Not the polite corporate kind with carefully worded emails and passive-aggressive board meetings. Real war, where you used every weapon available and worried about the consequences later. I don't know if I can do that, she said quietly. That's not how I operate. I built my career on being better than the people who play dirty. And look where that got you, stranded on a street corner by people you trusted. Logan's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not saying you have to become like them. I'm saying you have to be willing to fight them on their level. Just this once. And then what? If I win by being ruthless, what does that make me? Someone who survived. Someone who protected what she built. Someone who didn't roll over and let corrupt bastards steal everything she worked for. He stood up, stretched. But it's your call. I can hand you all the ammunition in the world, but you're the one who has to decide whether to use it. Victoria looked down at the flash drives on the table. 3 small pieces of plastic that contained enough information to destroy multiple lives, possibly including her own if this went wrong. I need to think, she said. Fair enough. Guest room's yours if you want it, or I can call you a car. Guest room? Logan looked embarrassed. Okay, it's technically a storage closet with a futon, but it's got a door that closes, and Emma's stuffed animal collection only takes up about 30% of the floor space. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. I'll take it. The storage closet/guest room was exactly as advertised. A futon that had seen better days, approximately 15 stuffed animals arranged in what might have been some kind of hierarchy, and a window that looked out onto the parking lot. It smelled faintly of lavender, probably from whatever detergent Logan used. Victoria lay down, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. Messages from Amanda, from her assistant, from a business reporter who'd somehow gotten her personal number. She ignored all of them. Another buzz. This one from an unknown number. I know what you're planning. It won't work. MB Marcus. He'd figured out she was building a case, and now he was trying to intimidate her, or warn her. Hard to tell which. She typed back, try me. His response came immediately. You have no idea what you're starting. Walk away now, take a generous severance package, and we all move on with our lives. Victoria stared at the message. He was offering her an out, a clean exit. She could take the money, find another position somewhere else. With her track record, she'd have offers within a week. Let someone else deal with the corruption, the conspiracy, the mess. She could walk away. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she thought about the last 12 hours. Being abandoned in the snow. The terror of realizing how completely vulnerable she was. The humiliation of having to accept help from a stranger because the people she trusted had betrayed her. She thought about Logan, working through the night to help someone he barely knew, risking his own limited resources, doing it because it was right. She thought about Emma, sleeping peacefully down the hall, growing up in a world where people like Marcus won because people like Victoria were too polite to fight back. She deleted the response she'd started to write and typed something else. See you in court. Marcus didn't reply. Victoria put the phone down, closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd contact the FBI's corporate fraud division. Tomorrow she'd call every business reporter she knew and leak just enough to make this story impossible to ignore. Tomorrow she'd go to war. But tonight she was in a storage closet in a delivery driver's apartment, surrounded by stuffed animals, and somehow that felt safer than anywhere she'd been in years. She fell asleep thinking about unicorns walking on water. Morning came too early. Victoria woke to the sound of Emma's voice in the hallway, debating with Logan about whether pancakes counted as a breakfast food if they had blueberries in them. Fruit makes it healthy, Emma insisted. Fruit mixed with sugar and butter is not the nutritional win you think it is, Logan countered. But you said yesterday. Yesterday was different. Today, you're having oatmeal. Victoria smiled despite herself. She got up, folded the futon back into its couch configuration, and emerged to find Logan in the kitchen looking like he'd been awake for hours. Coffee? He offered. Please. Emma was at the table, eating oatmeal with obvious disappointment. She brightened when she saw Victoria. Are you staying forever? She asked. Emma, Logan said. We talked about this. You said she was staying in the guest room. Guest rooms are for people who stay. They're for people who visit, Logan corrected. Victoria has her own home. Emma looked at Victoria. Do you like your home? It was such a simple question, but it hit Victoria harder than she expected. Did she like her home? Her apartment was beautiful, 2,000 square feet of hardwood floors and designer furniture, and a view that cost more per month than some people made in a year. But she'd been thinking of it as a home. It was a place she slept, a place she sometimes ate breakfast, a place where she reviewed documents and took conference calls and occasionally remembered that she was supposed to have a life outside of work. "It's nice," she said carefully. "That's not the same as liking it," Emma observed with the devastating accuracy of children everywhere. Logan intervened. "Finish your breakfast, sweetheart. School bus comes in 20 minutes. After Emma left, backpack over her shoulders, still arguing about the nutritional value of pancakes, Logan turned to Victoria. "You ready for this?" he asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "Good." He handed her a folder. "Everything you need. Contact information for the FBI agent who handles corporate fraud in this district. Phone numbers for 3 investigative journalists who've covered financial crimes before. And a burner phone just in case Marcus or his people are monitoring your regular line." Victoria took the folder, felt its weight. "You put this together this morning." "Couldn't sleep. Figured I might as well be productive." He paused. "Look, once you make these calls, there's no going back. This becomes public, messy, probably ugly. You sure this is what you want?" Victoria thought about Marcus's text last night, the offer to walk away, the easy exit. "I'm sure," she said. She made the first call from Logan's kitchen table, using the burner phone. The FBI agent, Special Agent Rebecca Torres, listened to her story without interrupting, asked pointed questions about the evidence, and agreed to meet that afternoon. The second call went to David Chen, an investigative reporter with the Tribune who'd broken several major corporate fraud stories. He was very interested in allegations of board-level conspiracy at one of the city's fastest-growing companies. Very interested. By the time Victoria finished the third call, Logan had cleaned up breakfast and was getting ready for his delivery shift. "I have to go," he said, grabbing his keys. "But call me if anything happens. Anything at all." "You've done enough, more than enough." "Let me decide what's enough." He hesitated at the door. "Be careful, okay? These people already proved they're willing to hurt you. Don't assume they'll stop now." After he left, Victoria sat alone in the quiet apartment. Through the window, she could see the city waking up. People heading to work, starting their normal days, completely unaware that somewhere in a federal building, an agent was reviewing evidence that would blow apart a major corporation. Her phone, her real phone, started ringing. "Amanda." "Where are you at?" Amanda demanded. "Marcus showed up with a lawyer an hour ago. He's claiming wrongful termination, threatening to sue, and telling anyone who'll listen that you're having some kind of breakdown." "Let him talk." Victoria, I mean it. Let him say whatever he wants. By this afternoon, none of it will matter." She could hear Amanda processing this. "What did you do?" "What I should have done the moment I realized what was happening. I went on offense." "Please tell me you had a lawyer review whatever you're planning." "No lawyers, just evidence." That's... Amanda stopped. "Actually, that might work. What do you need from me?" "Board meeting, emergency session, today, if possible. I want everyone in the same room when this breaks." "I can arrange that. But, Victoria, if this goes wrong, it won't. You can't know that." "No," Victoria agreed. "But I can control how I respond to it, and I'm done letting other people dictate what happens to my life." The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 4 p.m. Agent Torres agreed to attend, along with 2 other federal investigators. David Chen would be there too, with a photographer ready to document whatever happened. Victoria spent the afternoon preparing. Not her defense. She was done defending herself. Her offense. The case against Marcus and his co-conspirators laid out in meticulous detail every transaction, every email, every piece of evidence that proved they'd conspired to remove her from power. At 3:45, she walked into the building. Security tried to stop her. Apparently, Marcus had told them she was no longer authorized to be there, but Amanda appeared with a copy of the corporate bylaws and a very sharp reminder that only the board could remove a CEO, and last time anyone checked, that hadn't happened yet. The conference room was packed. All 9 board members, plus legal counsel, plus the federal agents, plus David Chen with his notebook out and his recorder running. Marcus was there, sitting at the far end of the table with his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. He looked up when Victoria entered, and she saw it in his eyes, the realization that he'd miscalculated, that the person he'd tried to eliminate wasn't going down quietly. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table, set down her folder, looked at each person in turn. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," she said calmly. "I'll keep this brief. Over the past several months, multiple members of this board have engaged in a conspiracy to remove me from my position as CEO. They've embezzled funds, manipulated financial records, and arranged for my transportation to be sabotaged in what amounts to kidnapping. I have evidence of all of this, which I've provided to federal investigators." The room exploded, shouting, denials, Marcus's lawyer demanding they end the meeting immediately. Richard Chen, the board member who'd been coordinating with Marcus, tried to leave, but Agent Torres blocked the door. "Everyone stays," Torres said, not loud, but with absolute authority. "We have questions." What followed was 3 hours of the most brutal interrogation Victoria had ever witnessed. Torres and her team went through every board member, every transaction, every piece of evidence. Some people broke immediately. Richard admitted everything within the first 20 minutes, desperate to cut a deal. Others held out longer, but the evidence was overwhelming. By 7 p.m., it was over. Marcus and 3 board members were being led out in handcuffs. The remaining board members, the ones who'd been loyal to Victoria or at least not actively criminal, sat in stunned silence. Amanda was the first to speak. "Well, that was dramatic." Victoria felt herself start to laugh. It came out slightly hysterical, edged with exhaustion and relief, and the surreal reality that she'd just watched half her board of directors get arrested. "Are you okay?" Amanda asked. "I have no idea," Victoria admitted. "Ask me again in a week." David Chen was scribbling furiously in his notebook. "This is going to be front page, you know that, right?" "Good," Victoria said. "Let everyone see what happens when people try to take what isn't theirs." She left the building at 8:30, exhausted and wired and feeling like she'd just run a marathon. Her phone had about 40 missed calls. She ignored all of them except one, a text from Logan. "How'd it go?" She typed back, "They're in handcuffs." "I'm not. I'm calling that a win. Emma wants to know if you're coming for dinner again." Victoria looked up at the building behind her. Her company. Still hers, still standing. But she didn't want to go back inside. Didn't want to go back to her empty apartment either. "Is pizza still on the table?" "Always." She got in a taxi, gave the driver Logan's address. Closed her eyes and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back for the past 24 hours. The fear, the anger, the bone-deep exhaustion of fighting for something that should have been hers without question. But also relief. And something else. Something that felt almost like hope. When she knocked on Logan's door, Emma answered it wearing pajamas decorated with dinosaurs. "Did you win?" Emma asked. Victoria thought about how to answer that. "Yeah," she said finally. "I won." "Good. Daddy says winners get extra cheese." Inside, Logan was setting plates on the coffee table. He looked up when she entered and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition that they'd both been through wars they shouldn't have had to fight, and they'd both survived anyway. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there," Victoria said. And sitting on Logan's worn-out couch, eating pizza with too much cheese while Emma explained her elaborate theory about dinosaur migration patterns, Victoria realized something. She'd won the battle, saved her company, destroyed the conspiracy. But the real victory was this, knowing that when everything fell apart, someone had been there to help. Not because they had to, not because they expected anything in return, just because it was the right thing to do. The media storm hit 3 days later, and it was worse than Victoria expected. David Chen's article ran on the front page of the Tribune with a headline that made her wince. "CEO survives kidnapping plot by own board members." By noon, it had been picked up by every major news outlet in the country. By evening, she was trending on social media, and not in a good way. The problem wasn't the facts. The facts were on her side, documented and verified by federal investigators. The problem was that half the internet had decided she was either lying for attention or had somehow deserved what happened to her. Victoria made the mistake of reading the comments while sitting in her office 3 days after the arrests. Big mistake. Typical female CEO playing victim when things get tough. If she was really good at her job, her own board wouldn't have turned on her. Convenient how she finds all this evidence right when she's about to be fired. She closed the laptop before she could read more, but the damage was done. Her hands were shaking. Amanda walked in without knocking, took one look at her face and said, "You're reading comments, aren't you?" "No." "Liar. Stop it. Those people are idiots who get their worldview from 30-second video clips. They think I made it up. They think I'm manipulating the situation. They think the earth is flat and vaccines cause autism. Who cares what they think?" Amanda set a folder on the desk. "The only opinions that matter are here. Letters of support from 32 employees, including everyone in your executive team. They're asking the board to issue a public statement backing you." Victoria opened the folder, scanned the letters. Reading them hurt worse than the online comments. These were people who actually knew her, who'd worked with her, who were putting their own reputations on the line to defend hers. "I don't deserve this," she said quietly. "The support? Or the attacks?" "Either. Both." Victoria closed the folder. "I've been so focused on building the company that I forgot to build relationships with most of these people. Half of them probably don't even know my first name. They know you tripled their stock options and fought to keep the company independent when 3 different firms tried to buy us out. That counts for something. Maybe. But it didn't make the knot in Victoria's stomach go away. The arrests had happened on Friday. By Monday, she had 3 board members in federal custody, a company in crisis, and a media circus camped outside her building. By Tuesday, 2 major clients had called to postpone upcoming contracts. By Wednesday, she was sitting in emergency meetings with investors trying to convince them the company wasn't about to collapse. And through it all, she kept thinking about Logan's apartment, the quiet, the simplicity. The way Emma had asked if she won, like it was that straightforward. Her phone buzzed. "Logan? Saw the news. You holding up okay?" Victoria stared at the message, trying to figure out how to answer honestly. She settled for, "Define okay. Are you eating, sleeping, remembering to be human?" No, and debatable. "Come over tonight. Emma's been asking about you. Also, I make a mean grilled cheese, and you look like you could use some comfort food." Victoria glanced at her calendar. 2 more meetings, 3 phone calls she'd been avoiding, and approximately 400 emails she needed to answer. She could work until midnight and still not be caught up. "What time?" "Whenever you can get here. Doors open." She left the office at 7, which was early by her usual standards, but still meant she'd worked a 12-hour day. The reporters outside had thinned out. It was cold, and apparently her scandal wasn't interesting enough to justify frostbite, but a few still shouted questions as she walked to her car. "Ms. Hale, is it true you're facing a wrongful termination lawsuit? Are you concerned about investor confidence? Some people are saying this whole thing was staged for publicity. Any comment?" Victoria kept walking, got in her car, locked the doors. Sat there for a minute with her forehead pressed against the steering wheel, trying to remember why she'd wanted this job in the first place. Right. Because she was good at it. Because she'd built something that mattered. Because walking away would mean they won. She started the engine and drove to Logan's apartment. Emma answered the door this time wearing a princess costume that looked like it had been through a war. The crown was bent, one sleeve was ripped, and there were mysterious stains that might have been paint or possibly food. "You came back," Emma said, like this was a surprise. "I did." "Daddy said you were probably too busy being important." Victoria felt something twist in her chest. "I'm never too busy for grilled cheese." Emma considered this, then nodded approvingly and stepped aside to let her in. Logan was in the kitchen, burning something. The smoke detector wasn't going off yet, but it was clearly thinking about it. "That's not grilled cheese," Victoria said. "It's experimental grilled cheese with tomato." "You mean you accidentally dropped a tomato on it while it was cooking?" "I prefer to call it innovation." Logan rescued the sandwich from the pan, examined it critically. "Okay, this one's mine. Let me start over for you." Victoria watched him work, noticed the tired lines around his eyes. "Rough day?" "Van broke down." Again. Spent 2 hours on the side of the highway waiting for a tow, then another hour arguing with a mechanic who swears it'll cost $800 to fix. "Do you have $800? "Not even close. But I've got duct tape and optimism. which has gotten me this far. He assembled a new sandwich with more care than it probably deserved. At least I didn't have reporters camped outside my workplace calling me a liar. You saw that? Hard to miss. You were on the news at noon, 5, and 6. Emma wanted to know why you were on TV, and I had to explain that sometimes when grown-ups do important things, other people get mad about it. What did she say? She said the other people were probably just jealous because you have a nicer shirt than them. Victoria laughed despite herself. Out of the mouths of babes. She's not wrong, though. You do have nice shirts. They ate grilled cheese at the kitchen table while Emma provided commentary on her day. Apparently there had been an incident involving glitter glue and another kid's hair, which had resulted in a very serious conversation with the teacher about personal boundaries and art supplies. I said I was sorry, Emma insisted, but Tyler moved his head right when I was pouring. You're not supposed to pour glitter glue on people's heads at all, Logan said patiently. That's the whole point. But how else are you supposed to make sparkly hair? You're not. Nobody needs sparkly hair. Emma looked at Victoria for support. Don't you think sparkly hair would be pretty? I think Tyler probably disagreed, Victoria said diplomatically. After Emma went to bed, a process that tonight involved extended negotiations about whether she could sleep in her princess costume, Logan poured 2 glasses of wine that had definitely come from a box and sat down across from Victoria. So, he said, you want to talk about it? Not really. Want to pretend everything's fine? Also no. Want to just sit here and drink mediocre wine in companionable silence? Victoria smiled. That one. They made it about 5 minutes before she started talking anyway. They're suing me, she said. Marcus and the others. Wrongful termination, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Their lawyers filed this morning. Logan took a sip of wine. Were you expecting them not to? I guess I thought once they were arrested, that would be the end of it. But they're still fighting, still trying to claim they did nothing wrong, that I manipulated the evidence, that they're the real victims here. Of course they are. People like that never think they're the bad guys. In their story, you're the villain who destroyed their brilliant plan to save the company from your reckless leadership. The company was doing fine before they started stealing from it. Facts don't matter when you're committed to your own narrative. Logan leaned back in his chair. But here's the thing, they're desperate. The lawsuit is a Hail Mary. They know the criminal charges are solid, so they're trying to muddy the waters in civil court, make you look bad enough that maybe a jury questions the whole story. My lawyers say it could take years to resolve. Years of depositions and motions, and my entire life being picked apart by their legal team. Probably. I don't know if I can do that. The company needs stability. The employees need to know we're not going to collapse. She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. You need what? Logan asked gently. I don't know. A break? A vacation? A different life? Victoria rubbed her eyes. I worked so hard to build this company. 80-hour weeks, no personal life, every decision calibrated to maximize growth and shareholder value. And for what? So half my board could try to steal it, and the internet could call me a liar. You did it because you're good at it, because you built something that employs hundreds of people and provides something useful to the world. That matters, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Does it? Because right now it feels like I sacrificed everything for a company that almost destroyed me. Logan was quiet for a long moment, turning his wine glass in his hands. Can I tell you something? About Sarah? Victoria nodded. When she died, I was angry. Not just sad, angry. Because we'd had this plan, you know? Work hard, save money, buy a house in a good school district, have kids, build a life. And she'd done everything right. She wasn't texting while driving, wasn't drunk, wasn't being reckless. She was just driving home from the grocery store and some kid ran a red light going 60 in a 35. He took another sip of wine. For a long time, I thought the plan had been pointless. All that sacrifice, all those hours she worked as a nurse doing double shifts to save for a house we never got to buy. What was it for? And then Emma got old enough to ask about her mom, and I had to figure out how to explain why her mother wasn't here. And I realized the plan wasn't pointless. The work wasn't wasted. Sarah built something too. She built me into someone who could be a single parent. She built a savings account that kept us fed for 6 months after she died. She built friendships that turned into a support network that helped raise Emma. He looked at Victoria directly. What you built matters. Not just the company, you. The person you became while building it, the skills you developed, the strength you proved you had, the refusal to back down when people tried to take what was yours. That doesn't go away just because some assholes tried to destroy you. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes and blinked them back. I'm not sure I like who I became. Why not? Because I'm sitting here having an existential crisis in a stranger's apartment instead of being with people who actually know me. Except I don't have people who actually know me. I have employees and board members and business associates. I have a network. I don't have friends. You have me, Logan said simply. You barely know me. I know you stopped to help someone in trouble. I know you fight for what you believe in. I know you eat pizza wrong. Who picks off the pepperoni? And you're terrible at pretending you're okay when you're not. That's more than most people know about each other after years of polite acquaintance. Victoria laughed, which turned into something that might have been a sob. I picked off the pepperoni because I thought it would be rude to order my own pizza when you were already ordering for Emma. See? Now I know you're a people pleaser with boundary issues. We're practically best friends. Is that your professional diagnosis? I'm a delivery driver, not a therapist, but yeah, that's my diagnosis. Logan refilled her wine glass. Look, I don't know what you should do about the lawsuit or the company or any of it. That's way above my pay grade. But I know you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to be tired and scared and unsure. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. They sat in silence for a while, drinking their mediocre wine and listening to the apartment building settle around them. Someone upstairs was playing music too loud. Someone else was having an argument about whose turn it was to do dishes. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that downstairs, a CEO was falling apart quietly. Can I ask you something? Victoria said eventually. Sure. Do you ever regret it? Giving up your career living like this? She gestured at the small apartment, the secondhand furniture, the visible evidence of a life lived on a tight budget. Logan thought about it. Sometimes, usually around the 15th of the month when rent's due and I'm trying to figure out which bill I can pay late, or when Emma needs new shoes and I have to explain why we can't get the light-up ones she wants. But then I remember what my old life looked like, which was empty, successful, and empty. I worked 60 hours a week at a job I was great at but didn't actually care about. I made good money and spent it on a house I barely lived in. I had colleagues, not friends. A routine, not a life. And then Sarah died and I got Emma, and suddenly all that success felt like the wrong thing to be chasing. He stood up, walked to the window. This apartment is too small. The van is held together with prayers and duct tape. I eat ramen more often than a 32-year-old man should admit. But Emma knows I'll always be there to pick her up from school. We eat dinner together every night. She's not being raised by nannies and babysitters while I chase the next promotion. You're a good father, Victoria said. I'm a present father. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah, good implies some kind of objective standard I'm meeting. Present just means I'm here. That's all I can guarantee. That I'll show up, even when it's hard, even when I'm tired, even when I'd rather be doing something else. Victoria thought about this. I'm not sure I know how to just show up. I only know how to succeed or fail. There's no middle ground. Then maybe that's your problem. Logan turned back to face her. You're so busy trying to be perfect that you forgot how to just be. The words hit harder than they should have. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest, some carefully maintained wall that had been holding back a flood she didn't want to acknowledge. I don't know how to be anything else, she whispered. Then learn. You're smart. Smartest person I've ever met, probably. Figure it out. And if I can't, then you keep trying anyway. That's what being human means. Victoria's phone buzzed. Amanda, asking where she was, whether she'd seen the latest news story, whether she needed anything. The world pulling at her, demanding her attention, requiring her to be the CEO, the leader, the person who had all the answers. She turned the phone off. Can I stay here tonight? She asked. Just tonight. Tomorrow I'll go back to being who I'm supposed to be, but tonight I want to just not. Logan smiled. Storage closet's all yours. Fair warning, though. Emma's been reorganizing her stuffed animal collection. I think they're arranged by species now, but it might be by cuteness. Hard to tell. Victoria ended up on the futon again, surrounded by an alarming number of plush creatures that Emma had apparently decided needed to sleep in the guest room for optimal comfort. She lay there in the dark, listening to the sounds of other people's lives, and felt something inside her start to unclench. Tomorrow she'd deal with the lawsuit. Tomorrow she'd face the board and the investors and the media. Tomorrow she'd be Victoria Hale, CEO, master of her universe. But tonight she was just Victoria, and that was enough. She fell asleep holding a stuffed bunny that Emma had tucked into her arms with the solemn instruction that Mr. Hops helps when you're sad. Morning came with the smell of burnt toast, and Emma's voice raised in what sounded like a philosophical debate about the nutritional differences between orange juice and apple juice. They're both sugar water, Logan was saying. Pick one. But Daddy, oranges have vitamin C? So take a vitamin. I'm not arguing about juice at 6:30 in the morning. Victoria emerged from the guest room to find Logan looking like he'd already been up for an hour, dressed in his delivery uniform and making school lunch with the efficiency of someone who'd done this exact routine 1,000 times. Morning, he said, not looking up from the sandwich he was assembling. Coffee's fresh. Well, freshish. I made it 20 minutes ago. That counts as fresh in my world, Victoria said, pouring herself a cup. Emma looked up from her juice dilemma. Are you coming to school with me? I don't think your teacher would appreciate that. Why not? We're learning about space. You probably know about space. I know about manufacturing and corporate governance. Not quite the same thing. Boring, Emma declared, then went back to her breakfast. Logan caught Victoria's eye and smiled. She's not wrong. After Emma left for school, backpack bulging with what Logan swore was books, but looked suspiciously like more stuffed animals, Victoria helped with the breakfast dishes. It felt strange, domestic, completely divorced from her actual life. I should go, she said, drying the last plate. I've got a meeting at 9 with our crisis management team. You mean you have to go face the wolves? Something like that. Logan leaned against the counter, studying her. You look different today. Different how? Less like you're about to shatter. More like you've remembered you're made of something harder than glass. Victoria set down the dish towel. I spent half the night having a breakdown in your guest room. Yeah, and you needed it. Better to crack in private than break in public. He checked his watch. I've got deliveries all day, but call me if you need to talk. Or if you just need someone to tell you the internet commenters are idiots. I'm very good at that. Why are you doing this? Victoria asked. Helping me. Letting me stay here. You've already done more than anyone could expect. Because you needed help, and I could give it. It's not complicated. It feels complicated. Only because you're used to everything having a transaction attached. Someone does you a favor, you owe them. Someone helps, they want something back. Logan grabbed his keys. I'm not keeping score. Emma needed help when Sarah died. People showed up. Now you need help, so I'm showing up. That's how it works when you're not living in a corporate hellscape. After he left, Victoria stood in the quiet apartment trying to remember what it felt like to live in a world where people just helped each other. She'd spent so long in an environment where every interaction had an angle, every relationship had a purpose. That simple kindness felt almost suspicious. Her phone turned back on revealed 37 missed messages. She scrolled through them, triaging the crisis, putting out fires, being the CEO the company needed her to be. But somewhere in the back of her mind, she was still thinking about stuffed animals arranged by species and a 6-year-old who thought sparkly hair was a reasonable life goal. The crisis management meeting was exactly as brutal as she expected. 3 hours of lawyers and PR consultants explaining various worst-case scenarios and mapping out strategies to mitigate the damage, the lawsuit, the media coverage, the potential impact on investor confidence and client relationships. We need to control the narrative, her PR consultant said for the 8th time. Right now, the story is about conspiracy and betrayal and board-level corruption. We need to shift it to resilience and leadership and your commitment to transparency. How do we do that? Amanda asked. Interviews, strategic ones. Maybe a long-form profile in a business magazine. We show Victoria as human, sympathetic, someone who fought back against genuine threats. Victoria felt exhausted just thinking about it. So I spend the next 6 months performing my own trauma for public consumption? If you want to win the PR battle, yes. And if I don't want to? The consultant looked uncomfortable. Then Marcus and his legal team control the story. They paint you as vindictive, unstable, someone who manufactured a crisis to cover your own failures. Is that what you want? Of course it wasn't. But Victoria was so tired of fighting, tired of performing, tired of being the perfect CEO who never showed weakness or doubt or any of the messy human emotions that everyone else was allowed to feel. Let me think about it, she said. After the meeting, Amanda cornered her in the hallway. You can't actually be considering not doing press. I know what we need. I just don't know if I can give it. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing. I've known you too long. Victoria slumped against the wall. I'm tired, Amanda. I'm so tired of all of this. The posturing, the performance, the constant battle to prove I deserve to be here. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just take the settlement, walk away, let someone else deal with it. Amanda stared at her. Who are you, and what have you done with Victoria Hale? I'm serious. So am I. The Victoria I know doesn't walk away from a fight. She certainly doesn't let a bunch of corrupt assholes win just because she's tired. Maybe the Victoria you know needs to evolve. Into what? Someone who gives up? That's not evolution, that's surrender. Amanda softened slightly. Look, I get it. This is hard. It's probably the hardest thing you've ever done. But you didn't build this company just to hand it over to people who tried to destroy you. Victoria closed her eyes. What if I can't do both? Run the company and fight this legal battle and maintain some semblance of a normal life. Then pick 2 out of 3 and figure out the rest later. But don't walk away. Not now. Not like this. That evening, instead of going back to her empty apartment, Victoria found herself driving to Logan's again. She told herself it was just to return the clothes she'd borrowed, but she knew that was a lie. She was there because it was the only place that felt real. Emma answered the door wearing a cape made from what looked like a bedsheet and safety pins. I'm a superhero, she announced. I can see that. What's your power? I can turn invisible when no one's looking. Victoria considered this. Isn't everyone invisible when no one's looking? Emma's face scrunched up in thought. That's a good point. I need a better power. Logan appeared behind her, also wearing a cape. We're working on her origin story. Turns out getting bit by a radioactive spider is harder than the movies make it look. I imagine most spiders aren't particularly radioactive. That's what I said. Emma thinks we're not trying hard enough. They ordered Chinese food and ate it straight from the containers while Emma explained her increasingly elaborate superhero backstory, which now involved time travel and a talking cat. So basically, you're Doctor Who, Logan said. Who's Doctor Who? Someone will watch when you're older and I can corrupt you with quality British television. After Emma went to bed, Logan and Victoria sat on the couch with tea that had gone lukewarm while they talked. My lawyer called today, Victoria said. Marcus's team wants to settle. They're offering to drop the lawsuit if I agree to pay their legal fees and issue a statement saying the arrests were a misunderstanding. That's insane. That's desperation. They know the criminal case is solid. This is their last play. Try to salvage something, even if it's just enough money to cover their lawyers. Are you going to take it? Victoria stared into her tea. A week ago, I would have said absolutely not. Today, I don't know. If I settle, this ends. I can move on, focus on rebuilding the company, stop living in this constant state of crisis. And if you fight, then it drags on for years. Discovery, depositions, trial, everything I've ever done picked apart by lawyers trying to prove I'm a vindictive fraud. My entire life becomes about this lawsuit. Logan was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you what I think? Please. I think you're confusing being tired with being defeated. They're not the same thing. They feel the same right now. I know, but tired is temporary. Defeated is permanent. If you settle, you're choosing permanent just because temporary feels overwhelming. What if I don't have the energy for this fight? Then you rest. You take time to recover, but you don't give up. He turned to face her fully. Victoria, these people tried to destroy you. They didn't try to compete with you or outwork you. They literally conspired to take everything you built. And now they want you to pay their legal bills and call it a misunderstanding? That's not justice. That's not even a draw. That's them winning. Maybe I'm okay with them winning if it means I get my life back. You won't get your life back. You'll get a different life. One where you know you backed down. One where every time someone questions your authority or challenges your decisions, you'll remember that when it mattered most, you folded. The words stung because they were true. Victoria set down her tea, stood up, walked to the window. The city stretched out below, all those lights, all those people living their complicated lives. I used to think I was strong, she said quietly. I thought strength meant never showing weakness, never asking for help, never admitting when things were too much. But the last week has proven I'm not that strong. I needed help. I asked for it. I've spent multiple nights crying in your guest room. That's not strength. That's exactly strength, Logan said. Strength isn't pretending you're fine when you're not. It's being honest about the struggle and doing it anyway. Victoria turned to look at him. Is that what you tell yourself? When you're eating ramen again because the van needed repairs and Emma needed new shoes? Yeah. And also that my kid is happy and healthy and knows she's loved. That's worth more than financial stability. You're a better person than I am. I'm a different person than you are. Better isn't the right word. Logan joined her at the window. But I think you're selling yourself short. You built a company from nothing. You fought back when people tried to steal it. You've survived something that would have destroyed most people. That counts for something. Then why doesn't it feel like enough? Because you're still defining success by external measures, board approval, investor confidence, media coverage. But maybe success is just showing up every day and trying to do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when you don't have all the answers. Victoria wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that showing up was enough, that trying mattered even when you weren't sure if you'd win. I'm not going to settle, she said. No? No, you're right. If I back down now, I'll regret it forever. These people tried to destroy me. The least I can do is make them work for it. Logan smiled. There she is. Who? The person who stopped at a bus stop in a snowstorm and refused to give up even when everything looked hopeless. She's been in there the whole time, just needed a reminder. Victoria felt something shift inside her. Not confidence exactly. She was still tired, still scared, still uncertain about 1,000 things. But determination, the bone-deep knowledge that she'd survived worse and would survive this too. She turned back to the window, looking out at the city that had almost broken her, and made a decision. She wasn't just going to fight back. She was going to win. The rejection of Marcus's settlement offer hit the news cycle within 24 hours, which meant someone on his legal team had leaked it deliberately. Victoria found out while sitting in a coffee shop 3 blocks from her office, trying to have a normal morning before the chaos resumed. The headline on her phone read, "Embattled CEO refuses peace offering, vows scorched earth legal battle." She hadn't vowed scorched earth anything. She'd simply said no to paying the legal bills of people who'd tried to kidnap her. But nuance didn't sell clicks. Amanda called 30 seconds later. "Please tell me you've seen it," Amanda said without preamble. "I'm looking at it now. They're spinning this as you being vindictive, unreasonable, unable to move past your need for revenge. I'm not being vindictive. I'm refusing to reward criminal behavior. I know that. You know that. But Marcus's PR team is very good at making you look like the villain." Amanda paused. "We need to respond today, before this narrative solidifies." Victoria closed her phone, stared at her coffee. It was good coffee, expensive, perfectly brewed, from a place that charged $7 for a medium. A month ago, she wouldn't have blinked at the price. Today, she found herself thinking about Logan's kitchen, the coffee maker that sometimes worked and sometimes just made hot brown water the way he'd apologized for not having real cream. "Victoria, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." She picked up the phone again. "Set up the interview, the long-form one. Whatever outlet you think will give us the fairest shot." "You're sure?" "No, but do it anyway. Do it." The interview was scheduled for the following week with Rebecca Martinez, a business journalist known for tough but fair coverage. Victoria spent the intervening days preparing with her PR team, going through likely questions, crafting responses that would humanize her without making her seem weak. "Don't cry," her consultant said. "No matter what she asks, don't cry. It'll look like manipulation." "I'm not going to cry." "Good. But also don't look cold. Show emotion. just not too much emotion. You want to seem relatable but competent, vulnerable but strong. So basically perform an impossible balancing act while someone asks me about the worst week of my life? Exactly. You've got this. Victoria wasn't sure she had this, but she showed up anyway. The interview took place in a neutral conference room, cameras set up to make it look casual despite the four-person production crew. Rebecca Martinez was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, wearing the kind of simple blazer that probably cost more than it looked like it did. "Thank you for doing this," Rebecca said as they got mic'd up. "Thank you for being willing to hear my side." "I'm willing to hear all sides. That's the job." Rebecca settled into her chair, notepad ready. "Shall we start?" The first 20 minutes were softballs, background on the company, Victoria's career trajectory, the growth they'd experienced over the last 5 years, establishing context, building the narrative foundation. Then Rebecca shifted. "Let's talk about the night of January 15th. You were returning from a business dinner when your driver, who you'd trusted for 4 years, abandoned you on a street corner in sub-freezing temperatures. Can you walk me through what that felt like?" Victoria had rehearsed this answer. Keep it factual. Don't dramatize. Focus on the betrayal of trust rather than the fear. What came out was something else entirely. "It felt like the ground disappearing," Victoria said. "Like everything I thought was solid just wasn't. I'd spent years building relationships, trusting people, believing that competence and hard work mattered. And in one moment, I realized that none of it had protected me. The people I trusted were the ones who wanted to destroy me." "Did you suspect at the time that it was connected to your board?" "Not immediately. At first, I just thought I'd been incredibly unlucky. Wrong place, wrong time, driver having a genuine emergency. It wasn't until later, when I started putting the pieces together, that I realized how carefully orchestrated it was." "And that's when you contacted the authorities?" Victoria hesitated. This was the part her lawyers had warned her about. Don't mention Logan. Don't give Marcus's team any ammunition about how she'd gathered evidence, who'd helped her, anything they could use to question the investigation. But sitting there, looking at Rebecca's patient, waiting expression, Victoria was tired of the careful answers. "No," she said. "That's when I met someone who helped me understand what was really happening." "Someone?" "A delivery driver named Logan Pierce. He stopped when he saw me stranded, gave me a ride, let me use his phone, helped me figure out what had happened and how to respond to it." Her PR consultant, watching from behind the cameras, made a frantic cutting gesture. Victoria ignored her. He'd been a systems engineer before his wife died, and he became a single father. He understood corporate security systems, knew how to find evidence of fraud. Without him, I probably would have missed that board meeting. I definitely wouldn't have discovered the conspiracy as quickly as I did. "That's quite a lucky coincidence," Rebecca said carefully, "meeting someone with exactly the skills you needed. It wasn't luck. It was kindness. He stopped because someone needed help. He kept helping because it was the right thing to do. And yes, he happened to have skills that proved useful, but that's not why he did it." "You've maintained a relationship with Mr. Pierce since then?" Victoria felt herself smile. "We have pizza together sometimes. His daughter thinks I need more vegetables in my diet." "So this person who helped uncover a massive corporate conspiracy is now someone you consider a friend?" "Yes. Is that surprising?" "It's unexpected. Most CEOs don't form close friendships with delivery drivers." "Maybe that's the problem," Victoria said. "Maybe if more of us paid attention to the people outside our narrow professional circles, we'd be better at recognizing when the people inside those circles are lying to us." The interview continued for another hour. Rebecca asked about the evidence, the arrests, the ongoing legal battles. Victoria answered as honestly as she could without compromising the criminal cases. But she kept coming back to Logan, to the night he'd stopped at a bus stop, to the way he'd helped without expecting anything in return. Her PR consultant looked increasingly distressed. When they finally wrapped, Rebecca turned off her recorder and leaned back. "Off the record?" she said. "Sure. That was either the most authentic interview I've done in 10 years, or you're a better actor than I gave you credit for." "I'm a terrible actor. Ask anyone who's ever seen me try to pretend I'm happy about a bad quarterly report." Rebecca smiled. "I believe you. Which means you just threw your entire PR strategy out the window to tell the truth about some guy who drives a delivery van. Is that a problem? Depends. Is this guy, Logan, is he going to be okay with being part of your story? Because once this airs, people are going to be very interested in the delivery driver who saved the CEO. Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. She hadn't thought about that, hadn't considered that pulling Logan into her narrative might drag him into her mess. I should have asked him first, she said. Yeah, you probably should have. You might want to give him a heads up before this publishes next week. Victoria called Logan from the car, her hands shaking slightly as she waited for him to pick up. Hey, he said, sounding distracted. Can I call you back? I'm trying to convince Emma that we can't adopt every dog she sees on the internet. It's important. His tone changed immediately. What happened? Are you okay? I'm fine. I did something stupid. In the interview, I talked about you. Silence. Logan? I'm here. What did you say? Victoria explained the whole thing. The question about that night, her decision to tell the truth, the way she described him as a friend rather than just someone who'd helped. I wasn't thinking, she finished. I should have cleared it with you first. I should have realized that bringing you into this publicly would affect your life too. I'm sorry. More silence. Then, you called me your friend? That's what you're focusing on? Well, yeah, I've been your friend for like 2 weeks. Didn't realize it was public information. Despite everything, Victoria laughed. I'm serious, Logan. When this publishes, reporters are going to start digging into your life. They're going to show up at your apartment, ask your neighbors questions, probably track down Emma's school. Then I'll deal with it. Just like that? Just like that. Victoria, you told the truth. I did help you. We are friends. Weird as that still feels to say. If people want to make a story out of that, fine. I've survived worse than nosy reporters. You have a daughter to think about. And she already knows what happened. I told her I helped a friend who was in trouble. She thinks you're cool because you were on TV. This doesn't change anything for her. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes and blinked them back. I dragged you into something you didn't sign up for. You gave me credit for helping when you could have taken it all yourself. That's not dragging me into anything. That's being honest. Logan paused. Look, I need to go convince Emma that we don't have room for a Great Dane in a one-bedroom apartment. But Victoria, stop apologizing for being human. It's actually one of your better qualities. The article published on Thursday morning with the headline, How a Delivery Driver Helped a CEO Expose Board Corruption. It was fair, balanced, and made both Victoria and Logan sound like actual people rather than corporate archetypes or hero stereotypes. The reaction was immediate and polarizing. Half the internet decided Logan was a hero, a real-life Good Samaritan who'd saved a woman in distress. The other half decided he was somehow part of the conspiracy, or angling for a payout, or evidence that Victoria was lying about the whole thing because real delivery drivers didn't have corporate security expertise. Logan's phone number got leaked by the end of the day. So did his address. Victoria found out when he texted her a photo of 3 different reporters camping outside his apartment building. They've been here since 6 a.m. Emma thinks they're very dedicated fans. Victoria called him immediately. This is my fault. I'm so sorry. Stop. It's fine. Annoying, but fine. Building manager already told them to leave, or he's calling the cops. Do you need somewhere to stay? I can get you a hotel, somewhere they won't find you. We're not hiding in a hotel because some reporters are doing their jobs. We'll be fine. But they weren't fine. By Friday, someone had published Logan's entire employment history, including the gap after Sarah's death and the dramatic salary decrease when he'd switched to delivery driving. Financial bloggers were speculating about whether he was in debt, whether Victoria had paid him off, whether this whole thing was an elaborate scam. Emma's school called to report that a reporter had tried to approach her during recess, claiming to be doing a story about everyday heroes. That was when Logan called Victoria back. Okay, he said, voice tight. Now I'm pissed. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing and help me figure out how to fix this. They went after my kid. That's not okay. Victoria felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. I'll handle it. How? By making myself a more interesting target than you are. She called Rebecca Martinez directly. I need a favor, Victoria said. I'm listening. Do a follow-up. Interview Logan, let him tell his own story. The speculation is getting out of control, and now they're bothering his daughter. If people hear from him directly, maybe they'll back off, or it'll make him an even bigger target. That's his call to make. But right now he's a mystery, and people fill in mysteries with whatever narrative serves them. Let him control his own story. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I'll reach out to him, but Victoria, this is getting messy. You know that, right? Everything about this has been messy from the start. Might as well be honest about it. Logan agreed to the interview, which surprised Victoria until she realized it shouldn't have. He'd spent 6 years protecting Emma from the world. Of course, he'd step into the spotlight if it meant keeping reporters away from her school. The interview aired the following Monday. Logan, sitting in his apartment with Emma's drawings visible in the background, explaining calmly and clearly what had happened. Yes, he'd helped Victoria. No, he hadn't been paid. Yes, he had corporate security experience, and no, that wasn't suspicious. Lots of people change careers after major life events. I stopped because someone needed help, he said simply. That's it. That's the whole story. There's no conspiracy, no hidden agenda. Sometimes people just help each other. And your friendship with Ms. Hale? Rebecca asked. Logan smiled slightly. She buys pizza and listens to my daughter explain her theories about unicorns. We're friends. Is that weird? Maybe. But the last few weeks have been weird for both of us. Might as well have someone to be weird with. The interview humanized him in a way Victoria's PR team couldn't have scripted. By the end of the week, public opinion had shifted. Logan wasn't a suspicious figure anymore. He was just a single dad who'd done the right thing and was now dealing with consequences he hadn't asked for. The reporters left his building. Emma's school increased security but reported no more incidents. Life started returning to something resembling normal. Victoria's legal team, meanwhile, was building their case. Discovery had produced thousands of pages of documents, all supporting the fraud charges. Marcus and his co-conspirators were scrambling, their lawyers filing motion after motion to dismiss or delay, all of them denied. We're going to win this, her lead attorney said during a strategy session. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is whether you want to drag it out or push for a quick resolution. Define quick, Victoria said. If we push hard, we could have a trial date within 6 months. Jury trial, full media circus, but it would be over relatively quickly. And the alternative? Let it drag. Make them spend money on lawyers, make them sweat, wait for them to realize they can't win and come back with a better settlement offer. Victoria thought about the last month. The stress, the sleepless nights, the constant low-level anxiety of being under siege. Push for the trial date, she said. I want this over. The trial was set for July, which gave them 4 months to prepare. 4 months of depositions and witness interviews and mock trial sessions. 4 months of living in the past, reliving the worst week of her life over and over as lawyers picked apart every detail. But it also gave her 4 months to rebuild the company, to restore investor confidence, to repair client relationships, to prove that Hale Industries could survive the scandal and come out stronger. Victoria threw herself into the work with the same intensity she'd always had, but something was different now. She left the office at 6 most days. She had dinner with her executive team, not working dinners, just dinner. She learned the names of the security guards and the cleaning staff and the people who worked in the mailroom. And twice a week she had pizza with Logan and Emma. It became a routine she looked forward to more than she wanted to admit. Emma's elaborate stories, Logan's patient parenting, the comfortable silence that came from spending time with people who didn't need her to be anyone other than who she was. You're different, Amanda observed one day, watching Victoria actually leave at 5:45 for once. Different how? Less intense, more, I don't know, human. I'm not sure that's a compliment. It absolutely is. The old Victoria would have worked until midnight every night preparing for this trial. The new Victoria apparently has dinner plans. Victoria grabbed her coat. The old Victoria would have burned out by April. The new Victoria is trying to survive this with some part of herself intact. Is this about the delivery driver? Amanda asked carefully. His name is Logan. And no, it's not about him specifically. It's about remembering that there's more to life than quarterly reports and board meetings. You're allowed to be happy, you know, even in the middle of all this. Victoria paused at the door. I'm working on believing that. Emma's 7th birthday fell 3 weeks before the trial was scheduled to start. Logan mentioned it in passing. They were doing something small, just cake and a couple of Emma's friends from school, nothing fancy. Can I come? Victoria asked before she could think better of it. Logan looked surprised. You want to come to a 7-year-old's birthday party? Is that weird? Incredibly weird. Emma will be thrilled. The party was held at a local park, which was free and had a playground that would keep the kids entertained for hours. Logan had made the cake himself, chocolate with purple frosting because Emma had decided purple was her new favorite color as of last week, and the color change needed to be acknowledged. Victoria showed up with a present she'd agonized over for 3 days. A telescope. Not a toy one, but a real beginner's telescope that Emma could actually use for her space obsession. Emma's reaction was worth every minute of deliberation. This is the best present ever, she declared, hugging the box. Better than Tyler's skateboard, better than Madison's video game, better than everything. You haven't even opened the others yet, Logan pointed out. Don't care. This is the best. Emma looked up at Victoria with absolute sincerity. You're my favorite grown-up who's not my dad. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. That's a very specific category. It's important to be specific, Emma said seriously, then ran off to show the telescope to her friends. Logan came to stand beside Victoria, watching the chaos of 7-year-olds running wild. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. I wanted to. She mentioned last week that she wanted to see Saturn's rings. Now she can. That telescope costs more than my rent. So? So you can't just... Logan stopped, shook his head. Never mind. Thank you. She's gonna love it. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching Emma try to explain to her friends how telescopes work despite having no actual knowledge on the subject. Can I ask you something? Logan said eventually. Sure. Are you okay with all of this? The trial coming up, the media attention, everything? Victoria considered lying, giving him the polished response she'd give anyone else. But this was Logan, who'd seen her fall apart in his guest room and hadn't judged her for it. I'm terrified, she admitted. Not of losing, I know we're going to win, but of what it costs. Every day in that courtroom is going to be someone trying to tear me apart in public. My decisions questioned, my competence challenged, my entire life examined for flaws. You don't have to do it alone, Logan said. I'll be there, in the gallery, every day if you want. You have to work. I'll figure it out. You were there for me when reporters were harassing Emma. I can be there for you when lawyers are harassing you. Victoria looked at him. Why? Why do you keep showing up for me? Logan smiled slightly. Because you keep showing up for Emma. Because you remembered her birthday and bought her exactly what she'd love. Because you're trying really hard to be a better version of yourself, and that deserves support. I don't know if I'm better, just different. Different is good. Different means you're growing. One of Emma's friends came running over to report a crisis involving the birthday cake and a particularly ambitious ant colony. Logan went to investigate, leaving Victoria standing alone at the edge of the playground. She watched Emma pointing the telescope at the sky, even though it was 2 p.m, and you couldn't see stars. Watched Logan negotiate with 7-year-olds about whether ants deserved cake. Watched parents she'd never met smile at her like she was just another person at a kid's birthday party, not a CEO whose personal drama had been national news. For the first time in months, Victoria felt something that wasn't anxiety or exhaustion or grim determination. She felt peace. The feeling lasted exactly 4 more days, until Marcus's legal team filed a motion claiming Victoria had compromised the trial by publicly discussing the case. They cited the Rebecca Martinez interview, claimed she'd poisoned the jury pool, demanded the trial be delayed or dismissed entirely. It was a desperate move, and Victoria's lawyers were confident it would be denied. But it meant more hearings, more stress, more delays to a process she desperately wanted finished. They're stalling, her lead attorney explained. Hoping you'll get tired of fighting, accept a settlement just to make it stop. How long can they stall? Realistically, another few months. The judge isn't going to put up with indefinite delays, but they can probably push the trial to October. October. 6 more months of this. 6 more months of living in limbo, of fighting battles she shouldn't have to fight, of watching people who tried to destroy her play victim on the courthouse steps. Victoria left the law office and drove straight to Logan's apartment. Didn't call ahead, didn't warn him, just showed up and knocked on the door. He answered in sweatpants and a t-shirt with a mysterious stain, holding a spatula. "Hey," he said, looking surprised. "I'm making pasta. It's going badly. Want to help?" "They're delaying the trial," Victoria said. "Another 6 months, maybe more." Logan stepped aside to let her in. "Okay. Okay? That's all you've got? Just okay? What do you want me to say, that it sucks? It does. That you deserve better? You do. But what's the alternative? Give up? Let them win? We both know you're not doing that." Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I'm so tired, Logan. I'm so tired of fighting." "I know." He set down the spatula, pulled her into a hug. Just a simple hug. No platitudes or false optimism, just solid presence and the smell of badly cooked pasta and understanding. Victoria let herself break just a little. Not a full breakdown. Emma was in the next room doing homework, but enough to release some of the pressure that had been building for weeks. "You want to stay for dinner?" Logan asked eventually. "Fair warning, this pasta is definitely overcooked, and I think I forgot to salt the water, but it's food." Victoria pulled back, wiped her eyes. Overcooked pasta sounds perfect. They ate at the kitchen table while Emma complained about math homework and explained her new theory about whether unicorns could survive in space. The pasta was indeed overcooked, and Logan had definitely forgotten to salt the water, but Victoria ate it anyway and felt more grounded than she had in days. After Emma went to bed, Logan poured 2 glasses of wine, and they sat on the couch, not talking about the trial or the delays or any of it. Just existing in the same space, watching bad reality TV and making fun of people who thought buying a house with their boyfriend of 3 months was a solid life choice. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said during a commercial break. "Always. A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be sitting in a delivery driver's apartment eating overcooked pasta and watching house hunting shows, I would have laughed. This isn't my life. This isn't who I am. And now? Now I'm not sure who I am anymore. The CEO thing doesn't feel real. The trial doesn't feel real. But this," she gestured around the small apartment, "this feels real. And that's terrifying because I don't know what to do with that." Logan was quiet for a moment. "You don't have to do anything with it. You can just let it be what it is." "Which is what?" "2 people who became friends under weird circumstances, hanging out because they enjoy each other's company. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that." Victoria wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that things could be simple, that relationships could exist without strategy or purpose or some kind of transactional value. "What if I'm not good at simple?" she asked. "Then you practice. Lucky for you, I'm an excellent teacher of simple. Step 1, stop overthinking. Step 2, have more wine. Step 3, accept that some guy's choice in reality TV is objectively terrible and you're going to watch it anyway because friendship means compromise." Victoria laughed despite herself. "This show is terrible. It's amazing, and you know it." They watched 3 more episodes, drinking wine and arguing about whether the couple in Montana should buy the fixer-upper or the move-in ready. Somewhere around episode 4, Victoria fell asleep on Logan's couch, and he threw a blanket over her and let her sleep. When she woke up the next morning, sun streaming through the windows, Emma was sitting on the floor staring at her. "You slept here," Emma observed. "I did. Sorry if I took your spot." "It's okay. Daddy said you needed rest." Emma tilted her head. "Are you and Daddy dating?" Victoria sat up, tried to finger comb her hair into something less chaotic. "No, we're friends. Madison's mom says when grown-ups are friends like you and Daddy are friends, it means they're going to get married." Madison's mom might be making assumptions. "What's assumptions?" "It's when you think something is true without checking if it actually is." Emma considered this. "So you're not going to marry Daddy? That's not something we've talked about." "But you could?" Victoria heard Logan in the hallway, clearly trying to decide whether to rescue her from this conversation. She took pity on him. "How about you ask your dad about breakfast instead of interrogating his guests about their relationship status?" Emma brightened. "Can we have pancakes?" "Only if you brush your teeth first," Logan called from the hallway, giving up on pretending he hadn't been listening. After Emma ran off to brush her teeth, Logan appeared with coffee. "Sorry about that," he said. "She's been watching too many movies where everyone ends up paired off." "It's fine. She's 7. Everything seems simple at 7. "Does it bother you that she asks?" Victoria thought about it. "No, should it?" "I don't know. This is new territory for me. I haven't had anyone in my life since Sarah. Haven't wanted anyone. Emma's used to it being just us." "And now?" Logan sat down on the couch beside her. "Now I have a friend who falls asleep watching terrible reality TV and eats my badly cooked pasta." Emma sees that and tries to make sense of it with her 7-year-old logic. "What's your 32-year-old logic say?" "That I'm grateful, that having you in our lives makes things better, that I don't want to put a label on it or define it or make it more complicated than it needs to be." He paused. "Unless you want to complicate it." Victoria's heart was beating faster than it should. "I don't know what I want. Everything in my life is complicated right now. Adding more seems like a bad idea." "Fair enough. But I don't want to lose this either. Whatever this is." Logan smiled. "Then we don't lose it. We just let it be what it is, complicated circumstances and all." Emma returned, announced she'd brushed her teeth for at least a whole minute, and demanded pancakes. Logan got up to make them, and Victoria stayed on the couch, watching him cook and argue with his daughter about whether chocolate chips counted as a breakfast food. 6 more months until the trial. 6 more months of legal battles and media scrutiny and fighting for something that should have been hers without question. But also 6 more months of this. Of overcooked pasta and bad reality TV and a 7-year-old who asked uncomfortable questions. Of simple moments in a complicated life, friendship without conditions, peace in the middle of chaos. Victoria thought about the person she'd been a few months ago. The CEO who worked 80-hour weeks and measured success in quarterly reports. Who'd had a network but no friends. Contacts but no connections. A life that looked successful from the outside but felt hollow from within. That person wouldn't have recognized this version of Victoria. Wouldn't have understood why she was choosing to spend her morning eating pancakes in a cramped apartment instead of preparing for the legal battle of her career. But this Victoria understood something the old one hadn't, that winning the trial wouldn't mean much if she lost herself in the process. That success without connection was just another kind of emptiness. That sometimes the most important victories weren't the ones that happened in boardrooms or courtrooms. They were the ones that happened over pancakes, in quiet moments, with people who saw you at your worst and chose to stick around anyway. The trial finally started on a Tuesday in October, 6 months and 3 weeks after Marcus and his co-conspirators had been arrested. Victoria walked into the courthouse wearing a navy suit that cost less than her usual wardrobe, but felt more like armor. Amanda had suggested looking successful, but not ostentatious, powerful, but approachable. "You look like someone who's about to win," Amanda said as they climbed the courthouse steps. "I look like someone who didn't sleep last night." Same thing in this context. The gallery was packed. Press in the back rows, investors and employees scattered throughout, and in the third row on the left, Logan sat with a thermos of coffee and a paperback novel, looking completely out of place among the suits and notepads. He caught Victoria's eye as she walked past, gave her a small nod that somehow conveyed more support than a dozen good luck texts had managed. Emma had made her a card that morning, a drawing of Victoria wearing a cape and standing on top of a building labeled Justice. The spelling was wrong, but the sentiment was clear. Victoria had it folded in her jacket pocket. The trial itself was everything she'd feared and worse. Marcus's lawyers painted her as vindictive, unstable, a CEO who'd manufactured a crisis to cover her own failures. They suggested Logan had been paid off. They implied the evidence had been manipulated. They made her sound like a tyrant who couldn't handle dissent. Victoria's lawyers countered with facts. Bank records, email chains, testimony from federal investigators who'd verified every piece of evidence independently. They built their case methodically, piece by piece, until the conspiracy was undeniable. But facts didn't stop Marcus's team from going after her personally. "Isn't it true, Ms. Hale, that you have a history of volatile behavior?" Marcus's lawyer asked during cross-examination on day 3. "No. You've fired 17 employees in the last 2 years. I've terminated employment of people who weren't performing their jobs adequately. That's not volatile behavior. That's management. And you consider yourself an adequate manager?" I consider myself an effective one. The company's growth record speaks for itself. Does it? Or does it speak to luck and favorable market conditions that had nothing to do with your leadership? Victoria's lawyer objected, the judge sustained it, but the damage was done. The question hung in the air, planting doubt. Logan was there every day, sitting in the same seat, sometimes reading his book when the testimony got technical, sometimes just watching with the kind of steady presence that reminded Victoria she wasn't alone. On day 7, the prosecution called Logan to the stand. Victoria's stomach dropped. They'd prepared for this. Her lawyers had warned her that Marcus's team would try to discredit Logan, paint him as part of some elaborate scheme. But knowing it was coming didn't make it easier to watch. Logan took the stand looking exactly like what he was, a single dad who drove a delivery van and had gotten pulled into something way beyond his normal life. He wore khakis and a button-down shirt that was slightly wrinkled, and he answered questions with the same calm honesty he used when Emma asked why the sky was blue. "Mr. Pierce, isn't it true that you had significant financial difficulties at the time you met Miss Hale?" "I have significant financial difficulties most of the time. Single parent on a delivery driver's salary. So when you met a wealthy CEO who needed help, you saw an opportunity?" "I saw someone who was stranded in a snowstorm. The opportunity I saw was to not be a terrible human being." A few people in the gallery laughed. The judge gavelled for order. Marcus's lawyer tried again. "You expect this jury to believe you helped Ms. Hale out of pure altruism?" "I don't expect anything. I'm just telling you what happened." Logan looked directly at the jury. "I stopped because someone needed help. I kept helping because it turned out to be more complicated than a ride to a diner. That's it. There's no secret agenda. I'm not getting paid. I'm not hoping for a job or a payout or anything else. I'm just someone who thinks when you see something wrong, you try to fix it." The lawyer switched tactics. "You had corporate security experience. Isn't it convenient that Ms. Hale just happened to meet someone with exactly the skills needed to uncover this supposed conspiracy?" "It would be convenient if I'd planned it, but I didn't plan to be working late that night, didn't plan to take Morrison Street, didn't plan for there to be a snowstorm, or for Ms. Hale to be standing at that particular bus stop. Sometimes things happen without being part of some grand design. But you did use your security expertise to access Ms. Hale's company systems? With her authorization? Yes. To find evidence of fraud that was happening whether I looked for it or not." "And you're friends with Ms. Hale now?" Logan smiled slightly. "Yeah, we're friends." "How convenient." "How human," Logan corrected. "We went through something intense together. That creates bonds. You can call it suspicious if you want, but most people would just call it friendship." When Logan stepped down, he met Victoria's eyes across the courtroom. She mouthed "thank you," and he shrugged like it was nothing, like he hadn't just defended her character to a room full of strangers. The trial dragged on for 3 more weeks. Testimony from board members who'd been duped by Marcus, expert witnesses analyzing financial records, character witnesses describing Victoria's leadership. Each day felt longer than the last. But slowly, inevitably, the truth emerged. Marcus and his co-conspirators had stolen from the company. They had conspired to remove Victoria from power. They had arranged for her to be stranded. The evidence was overwhelming. On a Friday afternoon in early November, the jury returned after 6 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Victoria heard the verdict and felt nothing at first, just numbness. Then relief, crashing over her in waves that made her legs shake. Amanda grabbed her arm, steadying her. Marcus's face had gone gray. His lawyers were already filing paperwork for appeals, but everyone in the courtroom knew it was over. Victoria had won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. She'd prepared a statement with her PR team, something professional and measured about justice prevailing and moving forward. What came out was simpler. "I'm grateful to the jury for seeing the truth. I'm grateful to the investigators who built this case. And I'm grateful to everyone who stood by me when it would have been easier to walk away." She paused. "That's all I have to say." "What about Mr. Brennan's claims that you're vindictive?" "I think the jury answered that question." "Will you pursue additional damages?" "That's for my lawyers to decide. Right now, I'm just focused on rebuilding what was almost destroyed." "What about Logan Pierce? Some people say your relationship with him is inappropriate." "Some people should mind their own business," Victoria said, and walked away.
Logan was waiting by his van in the parking garage, having escaped the media circus through a side entrance. "You won," he said simply. "We won. I just told the truth on a witness stand. You're the one who actually fought this battle." Victoria leaned against his van, suddenly exhausted. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." They stood there for a moment, listening to the sounds of the city around them. Traffic, sirens, the distant shout of reporters still trying to get statements. "What happens now?" Logan asked. "I go back to running my company. Try to repair the damage. Convince investors we're stable. Rebuild the board with people I can actually trust." Sounds exhausting. It is, but it's my exhausting, my company, my choice to keep fighting for it. Victoria looked at him. "What about you? Back to delivery routes and convincing Emma that vegetables are important?" "Pretty much. Although she's decided she wants to be an astronaut now, so I'm trying to figure out how to support those dreams on a budget that doesn't include NASA internships." Victoria smiled. "I might know some people in aerospace manufacturing. Could probably arrange a tour." "You don't have to do that." "I know. I want to." Logan studied her face. "You're different than when we met. Not worse, just different." "How so?" "Less like you're holding yourself together with willpower and coffee. More like you're actually okay with being human." Victoria thought about the last few months. The trial, the stress, the constant pressure, but also the pizza dinners and Emma's questions and the surprising comfort of Logan's cramped apartment. "I learned something," she said, from you and Emma, about what actually matters. Which is? That success means nothing if you're alone. That being vulnerable isn't the same as being weak. That sometimes the best thing you can do is stop trying to control everything and just let people help you. Logan smiled. "Look at you, getting all philosophical." "Blame your daughter. She asked me last week if I was happy, and I realized I didn't know how to answer. That seemed like a problem." "And now?" Victoria considered this. "Now I'm tired and stressed and facing months of rebuilding. But yeah, I think I might be happy." Logan's phone buzzed. He checked it, laughed. "Emma wants to know if you're coming for dinner to celebrate. She's very concerned about whether we have enough pizza. Tell her yes, and that I'll bring dessert. She'll hold you to that. I'm counting on it." Victoria drove to Logan's apartment that evening, stopping at a bakery to pick up a cake that Emma had specifically requested, chocolate with purple frosting and edible glitter that's safe to eat, not the craft kind. When she arrived, Emma answered the door wearing a homemade medal made from cardboard and ribbon. "I made this for you," Emma announced. "It says best winner ever." Victoria accepted the medal solemnly. "This is the greatest award I've ever received. Better than your business awards?" "Way better. Those don't have glitter." Emma beamed. "That's what I said. Daddy said glitter isn't professional, but I think professional people need more glitter." "Your daughter has excellent priorities," Victoria said to Logan as Emma ran off to check on the pizza in the oven. "She really does. I'm hoping she maintains this worldview through adulthood." They ate pizza and cake, and Emma insisted on hearing every detail of the trial, even though Logan tried to redirect the conversation multiple times. "So the bad guys went to jail?" Emma asked. "They're going to jail, yes," Victoria said. "Good. Jail is for people who are mean." Emma took another bite of cake. "Are you going to marry Daddy now?" "Emma!" Logan's face turned red. "We've talked about this, but Madison said when someone helps someone else, like in a movie, they always get married at the end." "This isn't a movie," Logan said. "It kind of is," Emma insisted. "Victoria was in trouble, Daddy helped her, the bad guys got caught. That's a movie." Victoria looked at Logan's mortified expression and couldn't help laughing. "How about we focus on being friends first?" Victoria said diplomatically. "Marriage is a very big step." "How big?" "Like, you have to really know someone, what they're like when they're grumpy, when they're sick, when things go wrong. You have to know if you fit together in regular life, not just exciting circumstances." Emma pondered this. "Do you and Daddy fit together?" Logan made a sound like a dying animal. Victoria took pity on him. "We're still figuring that out," she said. "But we definitely fit together as friends." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer and moved on to explaining her latest space theory,
This one involving what would happen if you tried to keep a unicorn on Mars. After Emma went to bed, Logan poured wine and they sat on the couch in familiar silence. "Sorry about the interrogation," Logan said. "I've tried explaining that not every story ends in marriage, but she's 7 and convinced she knows how the world works. She's not entirely wrong, though." Logan looked at her. "About what?" "About us fitting together. Maybe not in the way she thinks, but..." Victoria trailed off, trying to find words for something she barely understood herself. "But," Logan prompted gently, "but I like who I am when I'm here. I like that Emma asks uncomfortable questions and you make terrible pasta and nobody expects me to have all the answers. I like that this feels real in a way most of my life doesn't." "What are you saying?" "I don't know. Maybe that I don't want this to end just because the trial's over. Maybe that I want to keep coming here for pizza and bad TV and whatever else normal people do when they're not fighting corporate conspiracies." Logan set down his wine glass. "Can I be honest about something?" "Always." "I'm terrified. Of this. Of what it might become. Because I've lost someone I loved before. And Emma's lost her mother. And I've spent 6 years building a life where we're safe because we don't risk too much. And you're not a small risk. You're a CEO with a complicated life and demands I can't even imagine. Getting closer to you means getting Emma closer to you. And if it doesn't work out..." "I know," Victoria said quietly. "I'm terrified too. I've spent my whole career avoiding anything that might compromise my focus or complicate my life. And you're both of those things. You and Emma have already complicated everything, made me question what I want, made me realize my supposedly successful life was missing something crucial. So what do we do?" "I don't know. I've never done this before. The whole dating thing. I was always too busy, too focused on work. I don't know how to balance a relationship with running a company. I don't know how to be part of someone's life without consuming it entirely." Logan smiled slightly. "Well, I don't know how to date someone who makes more in a month than I make in a year. I don't know how to introduce my daughter to someone who might not stick around. I don't know if I can be what someone like you needs." They looked at each other. "We're both terrible at this," Victoria said. "Absolutely terrible. So maybe we just try? And fail sometimes and figure it out as we go?" Logan reached for her hand. "That sounds terrifying and impossible and like it probably won't work. But I want to try anyway. Because the last few months with you in our lives have been chaotic and stressful and also the best thing that's happened to me since Emma was born. And I think maybe that's worth risking the comfortable safety I've been hiding in." Victoria squeezed his hand. "I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to work too much and forget important things and probably prioritize the wrong stuff sometimes. And I'm going to be broke and stressed about money and unable to give you the kind of life you're used to. I don't want the life I'm used to. That's kind of the point." Logan pulled her closer. "Then maybe we both get to figure out what we actually want instead of what we think we're supposed to want." "That sounds complicated." "Everything worth doing is complicated." He kissed her then, gentle and tentative, and nothing like Victoria had imagined. It wasn't fireworks or drama or some big cinematic moment. It was quiet and real and tasted like cheap wine and chocolate cake. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. "Emma's going to be insufferable about this," Logan said. "She's going to plan our entire wedding by tomorrow." "Probably. She's very efficient when she's excited about something." Victoria rested her head on his shoulder. "Can we just not rush this? I want to do it right. Get to know you, spend time with Emma, figure out how our lives fit together before we make any big decisions." "That sounds perfect. Slow and careful and probably kind of messy." "The messiest." They sat there for a long time, not talking, just being together. Outside, the city continued its endless motion, but inside Logan's small apartment, everything felt still. The next few months were exactly as messy as they'd predicted. Victoria threw herself into rebuilding the company, working long hours to restore investor confidence and repair the damage Marcus had caused. Some days she made it to dinner, some days she didn't. Logan continued driving his van, continued being a single dad, continued living a life that looked nothing like Victoria's. Some weeks they saw each other twice. Some weeks they managed 5 minutes on the phone between his deliveries and her meetings. But they made it work, slowly, carefully, without any grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Just two people learning how to fit their incompatible lives together. Emma became Victoria's biggest fan and harshest critic, offering unsolicited advice on everything from business strategy to whether Victoria's shoes were too pointy for running away from bad guys. "You need sneakers," Emma declared one Saturday morning while Victoria was helping with breakfast. "Successful people wear sneakers." "Oh, where did you hear that?" Logan asked, flipping pancakes. "The internet. Daddy, can Victoria come to my school play?" Logan glanced at Victoria. "That's up to her. It's on a Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon." Victoria checked her phone, looked at her calendar. The old Victoria would have said no automatically. Tuesday afternoon was prime meeting time. She had calls scheduled, reports to review, a dozen things that couldn't be rescheduled. The new Victoria looked at Emma's hopeful face and said, "What's the play about?" "Space explorers. I'm a scientist who discovers a new planet. It's a very important role." "Then I'll definitely be there." She rescheduled the meetings. The company stabilized faster than Victoria expected. Turned out that surviving a major scandal and winning a public trial actually boosted confidence in some investors. "You fought for this company," one of them told her. "That matters more than quarterly fluctuations." She rebuilt the board carefully this time, choosing people based on integrity rather than connections, diversity of perspective rather than comfortable agreement. It was slower, harder, but the result was a board she could actually trust. Amanda became her COO, a promotion that surprised no one except Amanda herself. "You deserve it," Victoria said when she offered the position. "You've been running half the company anyway. I have other offers, places that pay more, that don't come with baggage from a public scandal." "I know. But do they have Emma planning their office holiday parties?" Amanda smiled. "That kid is terrifying. She asked me yesterday if I had good work-life balance and whether I was taking care of my emotional health. She's very concerned about these things." "I can see where she gets it from. 6 months ago, you would have never asked someone about work-life balance. 6 months ago, I didn't know it was possible to have both." The company continued growing, but differently now. Victoria left at 6 most days. She had mandatory no-email weekends. She actually used her vacation days. She still worked hard, still cared deeply about the company's success, but it wasn't her entire identity anymore. It was something she did, not everything she was. On a Tuesday in March, almost a year after that snowstorm changed everything, Victoria sat in a crowded elementary school gymnasium watching Emma portray a scientist discovering planet Sparkle. Logan sat beside her, whispering commentary about the ambitious special effects, which consisted mainly of streamers and a disco ball. "She's really committing to this role," he murmured. "She's a natural," Victoria agreed. After the play, Emma ran over still wearing her costume, a lab coat decorated with star stickers and what appeared to be actual glitter glue. "Did you see me discover the planet?" "You were brilliant," Victoria said, very scientific. "I made up some of my lines because Tyler forgot his. Do you think real scientists make things up?" "Only the creative ones," Emma beamed. "I'm going to be a creative scientist and also maybe run a company like you. Can I do both?" Victoria looked at Logan, who was trying not to laugh. "You can do anything you want," Victoria said, "as long as you work hard and believe in yourself. And have good people helping you," Emma added, "like Daddy helped you." "Exactly like that." They went for ice cream after, despite it being a Tuesday afternoon, and technically everyone having things they should be doing. Victoria ate chocolate chip and listened to Emma explain her next big dream, something involving marine biology, and also somehow still unicorns, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Content, not ecstatically happy, not perfectly satisfied, just content with where she was, who she was with, the life she was building. Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, and Victoria was getting ready to head to her own apartment, Logan walked her to the door. "Stay," he said quietly. "Emma's here." "I know, but you're here most nights anyway. You have clothes in my closet. Your laptop lives on my kitchen table. Emma asks where you are when you're not here. Maybe it's time to stop pretending you don't already live here half the time." Victoria's heart was racing. "That's a big step." "Yeah, but we've already taken most of the small steps. This is just acknowledging what's already true." "What about Emma? Have you talked to her about this?" Logan smiled. "She's been asking when you're moving in for 3 months. I'm pretty sure she already considers this your home." "And you? What do you consider it?" I consider it a place that's better when you're in it, a life that's better when you're part of it. He took her hand. I love you, Victoria. I probably have for a while. And I know you need to say it back when you're ready, but I wanted you to know that this isn't casual for me, that I want you here, that I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. I love you too. I think I've loved you since you gave me terrible coffee in a diner and didn't ask for anything in return. I just didn't know how to admit it without feeling like I was losing control. And now? Now I think maybe losing control is the same thing as letting someone in. And I want to let you in. You and Emma both. Logan kissed her, and it still wasn't fireworks. It was still quiet and real, and tasted like the ice cream they'd shared, but it felt like coming home. Victoria moved in gradually over the next month. Not dramatically, not with movers and announcements, just slowly bringing more of herself to this place that had become hers without her quite noticing. She kept her apartment for a while, using it as an office when she needed quiet space to work. But home became Logan's cramped apartment with Emma's drawings on the fridge and the couch that still sagged in the middle. Eventually, she bought them a house. Not a mansion, not anything ostentatious, just a 3-bedroom place with a yard where Emma could practice her space exploration and a garage where Logan could finally fix his van properly. You don't have to do this, Logan said when she showed him the listing. I know, but Emma needs her own room that isn't also a storage closet. And you need a workspace, and I need a home office. This isn't charity, it's practical. This house costs more than I'll make in my entire life. Good thing you're not buying it alone then. They moved in on a Saturday in June, with Emma directing the movers like a tiny general and insisting that her stuffed animals had to be arranged by species in her new room. Logan stood in their new kitchen, looking overwhelmed. This is really happening, he said. Having second thoughts? About 1,000, but also none. Is that possible? Victoria wrapped her arms around him. I think that's just what it feels like when something's right, but also terrifying. Speaking of terrifying, Emma's been asking when we're getting married. We've been officially together for 4 months. I know. I told her we need to actually live together first. Make sure it works. She said that's what dating is for, and we've been dating for over a year, if you count from when we met. She's not wrong. Logan pulled back to look at her. Are you saying, I'm saying Emma's timeline might not be wrong, but I'm also saying I need to finish rebuilding the company. You need to figure out what you actually want to do career-wise now that you don't have to just survive. We need to be sure we can handle real life together, not just crisis mode. So not yet? Not yet, but maybe someday. Logan smiled. I can live with someday. Emma appeared in the doorway. Are you talking about getting married because I have ideas about flowers? Of course you do, Logan said. Purple and silver, very space-themed, and the cake should have edible glitter. Let's maybe focus on unpacking first, Victoria suggested. Fine, but I'm making a list. She ran off, already planning a wedding that might not happen for years. Logan looked at Victoria. She's going to be impossible about this. She's always impossible. That's part of her charm. They spent the evening unpacking, ordering pizza because neither of them had the energy to cook, sitting on the floor of their new living room because the furniture hadn't been assembled yet. Emma fell asleep between them, still wearing her princess crown from earlier, surrounded by boxes and packing paper. This is it, Logan said quietly. This is everything I wanted and didn't know how to ask for. Victoria looked around the room, the boxes labeled in her handwriting and Logan's. Emma's drawings already taped to the wall, the chaos of 2 separate lives becoming one shared existence. It wasn't perfect. They'd argue about money and schedules and whose turn it was to deal with Emma's school drama. Victoria would work too much sometimes. Logan would stress about finances even when they didn't need to. Emma would ask uncomfortable questions and plan their entire future without consulting them. But it was real. It was theirs. It was the life she'd been too afraid to want until a snowstorm and a broken-down bus stop had forced her to accept help from a stranger who became family. A year ago, Victoria had been standing in the snow, abandoned and alone, thinking her carefully constructed life was ending. She'd been wrong. It had been beginning, not the life she'd planned, not the success she'd envisioned, but something better. Something that included messy dinners and difficult conversations, and a 7-year-old who believed unicorns could walk on water. Something that included love. Logan carried Emma to her new bedroom, tucked her in with her army of stuffed animals. When he came back, he found Victoria standing at the window, looking out at their new neighborhood. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm perfect," she said, and meant it. Not perfect in the way she used to define it. Flawless execution, maximum efficiency, zero vulnerability. Perfect in a newer, truer sense. Perfectly imperfect. Perfectly human. Perfectly content with exactly where she was. Logan joined her at the window, slipping his hand into hers. Outside, the city lights stretched endlessly, the same city where Victoria had almost lost everything, where Logan had been struggling to survive, where two people from completely different worlds had collided and somehow, impossibly, built something new. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "For what?" "For stopping. For helping. For showing me that there's more to life than just winning." Logan squeezed her hand. "Thank you for letting me help. For trusting me enough to be vulnerable. For loving my daughter almost as much as I do." "I love her exactly as much as you do." "I know. That's what makes this work." They stood there together, watching the city settle into night, and Victoria felt peace settle into her bones. The trial was over. The company was stable. The conspiracy had been defeated. But that wasn't the victory that mattered. The real victory was this moment, this man, this child sleeping down the hall, this life they were building together, one imperfect day at a time. Victoria had spent years believing that success meant standing alone at the top, never showing weakness, never needing anyone. She'd been wrong about that too. Real success looked like this: standing beside someone who saw your flaws and loved you anyway. Building a life with people who challenged you to be better, not just more successful. Learning that the strongest thing you could do was admit you needed help. Logan had taught her that. Emma had taught her that. Life had taught her that in the hardest way possible, and she'd finally learned to listen. "Come on," Logan said, tugging her hand. "Let's go to bed. Tomorrow we have to convince Emma that we can't paint her entire room purple." "Why not?" "Because she'll want to paint the whole house purple. And then the car. And then probably us." Victoria laughed, following him down the hall to their bedroom, their shared bedroom, in their shared house, in their shared life. It wasn't the ending she'd imagined when she'd started building her company all those years ago. It was better. Because this wasn't an ending at all. It was just the beginning of everything that actually mattered.